What's up, Sifters? Welcome to GameFace, episode 362 on Sifted Games at sifted.net, a crazy little podcast where we spin you around the awesome world of video games for a couple hours, and alongside me to do that is Matthew Keil. What's up, Matt Keil?
You know, even in that black and white footage, you can tell how much less gray was in my beard.
Oh, really?
In January 2020.
It wasn't that long ago.
No.
Yep. That's the project that I need to get on, is creating a new open for the show.
No one will recognize us. We're too old now.
Seriously, it's funny how many, in just a few years, we've changed so much. I mean, that's not that old even, that open.
A lot of things have happened.
That's true. A lot of stress has happened since that was made. It's been quite a few years here for everybody, not just us.
The last 3 years are the longest 10 years I've ever been through.
Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys have had a good week. Hope you guys are excited. We have a good show today, but I'm telling you, next week's show is going to be a banger. We're going to have Spider-Man. We're going to have New Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We're going to have Sonic Superstars, all in one episode. So It should be a real banger next week. But we have a good one this week, too, because October is just awesome. Hopefully you guys have figured that out by now, because it's literally every week there's at least one game worth picking up. I think a lot of people had to budget their money pretty seriously for this month, because then we have November, which is another big month for releases. The rest of the year looks pretty awesome.
Although November isn't as...
Actually, this year is a kind of a calm November compared to years prior. Everything shifted to October this year.
Yeah, I might actually have to play Call of Duty. Nothing else to do.
The campaign, at least, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think there's like one or two big games every week for November. I think we'll be fine for the show.
I would poke around at the multiplayer just to see. I mean, I have always found even when we watch the B-roll of you playing, I always find the endless pop-ups of XP shit and all that stuff to be very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Just watching the B-roll.
Yeah, like, I understand why people get the dopamine hit out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you can hear the sound effects of it, like that's one thing Call of Duty has done really well, is create that like. Yeah, the ding, 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 like it's like you're a cashier and you're just like bringing up the sales. There's something about it that just makes it feel really good. Now it does go away as you play after your first couple weeks of playing or whatever.
For me it's more like the couple hours.
Yeah, it's like for you. Yep. But anyway, the big Call of Duty open beta happened this past weekend. Hopefully you guys got a chance to check it out and give it a play. Seems like most of the response to it have been pretty positive.
Yeah. Although now that I think about it, I'd have to go back and play Modern Warfare 1 and 2 so I knew what the hell was going on.
That's true. Or you could just watch like the ending on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
Although, truth be told, even if you were just to watch all the cutscenes from a Call of Duty campaign, probably still talking an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah. That's not nothing.
It's like a little mini movie or something. So anyway, hopefully you guys got a chance to play and check it out and you had fun. Hopefully you guys got to check out RoboCop Rogue City before the demo went down. As it turns out, it wasn't even like the most popular demo from the Steam Next Fest. It was Enshrouded or whatever. Enshrouded, I think it's called.
Sure.
Ended up being the big game from the Steam Next Fest. I think
I didn't play that. Nothing really looked very interesting to me in the Next Fest this year.
Yeah, RoboCop ended up being like the 5th most popular game.
Well, RoboCop's demo came out before that started.
So maybe they didn't.
I think a lot of people
count.
had already done it.
That could be. Anyway, hopefully you guys got in on that RoboCop demo, because what we talked about and showed you in last week's show was just a slice of what that actual demo was. It was huge, so you'd really get a lot of play out of it if you wanted to. Are you excited to play the new Sonic, Matt? Sonic Superstars? No.
I mean, it looks fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you're talking to someone who thinks Sonic the Hedgehog peaked with Sonic the Hedgehog 1.
Yeah.
So, like, it's...
I think a lot of people would agree with you, honestly.
Fewer than you'd think. Most people say Sonic 2. I think Sonic 2 is exactly when it started to lose sight of what it should have been.
A little bit, but I also feel like it paid off some of the stuff that I was inspired by in the first one.
Like the spin dash is a good ad, but like I think and I know people like. The thing about Sonic 1 is it's just a platformer.
It is.
Like that first, the Green Hill Zone is a speed thing, but most of that game is hardcore platforming.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I liked that. That was one of the only games. I remember I played that at my friend's house because I didn't have a Genesis at the time. And I played it, and he went to bed. I slept over, and he went to sleep, and I kept playing, and I finished the game, and I started a new game immediately.
Wow.
At 3 a.m.
That's powerful.
I have not done that very often, but Sonic the Hedgehog 1 I did.
Yeah.
And I've never really had that compulsion with any of the others. And I think Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles are terrible. I don't like. They changed the art style. They changed the feel. They changed the philosophy. I didn't like how that worked.
The thing about 2D Sonics for me is that I get really excited for them, and then I play them, and they're over in like 3 or 4 hours. Like, they never last very long. So it's always this big build-up, and then I actually play it, and I'm like, that's it. It's over.
Well, that's the thing is, like, Sonic Hedgehog 1 isn't like that.
Right.
Because you got to, like, work your way through shit. You know, you got to actually do the work.
You have to be thoughtful a little bit.
It's more like Mario.
Well, it's like my wife, one of her favorite video game franchises is Sonic, because she can just hold to the right in the recent games, and he just does everything. And she just sits there and is like, oh, look how good I am. Like, it's just watching him whiz around the screen. Like, I think that's an appeal for casuals for Sonic.
Some of it, but it's like, but let's be honest, most of the people who are talking about Sonic are the furthest thing from casual.
That's true.
Because the Sonic fandom is one of the most bizarre corners of video games you can imagine.
Next to the Undertale community, which I discovered when my nephew was here.
To me, the Undertale community is just a, like, modern version of the Sonic. You know, it's just, you know, because look, Sonic fans are like weirdly old at this point, and for being this invested in cartoon
into a game that it looks like that. Yeah,
it's just, so it's. And at least Undertale probably doesn't have quite so many furries.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, is there a lot of people want to fuck Sans? Is that a thing?
It seems like they're just obsessed with that character.
Probably, I guess.
It's also, I don't get that character. It just doesn't. I'm just like, I could draw that character.
God, there's probably just endless boning jokes, isn't there?
Probably. Yeah.
I don't know much about the Undertale fandom other than that they're obsessive, but like Sonic, I think Sonic beats him, and also Sonic beats him in the sense that Undertale fans don't need to worry about the next sequel over and over again the way that Sonic fans do. That circle of like, oh, maybe this one will be good.
The circle of hope.
And then it comes out and like, oh no, it's all right. And then you realize, no, it's actually not all right. And then like, oh, Sonic, we're done. And then the next one gets announced and you're like, well, maybe this one will be good. Right. You know, look, the last good Sonic game, I mean, actually, I didn't mind the previous one. I
like Sonic Advance. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, the Advance ones are good. I think Generations was very good.
Yeah.
Sonic Colors was good.
Yeah, it was pretty good, too.
And I liked the last one. I didn't think it was amazing, but what was it? I can't remember the name of it.
The 3D one?
Yeah.
Sonic Frontiers.
Frontiers, that's right. I thought it was pretty good. It was supported well afterwards.
Yeah, they just released the last DLC like last week for it. Yeah. Like, and people are saying it's like impossibly hard. Which is interesting.
Which is funny because like everyone's saying how it was too easy.
Right. I think that maybe they overcorrected a little bit with the DLC.
If you've been playing Sonic Frontiers since launch, I think you can handle it.
That's true. Yeah. You probably want something that's a little bit more challenging.
The hardest Sonic stuff is really hard.
Yeah, it's true. So anyway, we'll be talking about Sonic Superstars in next week's episode, along with the new Mario and the new Spider-Man. What do you think about the Spider-Man reviews so far? Pretty much what we guessed.
Yeah, actually a little higher than I thought.
Yeah, you actually thought it was going to be like
I thought it would be more like 87, 88.
Yeah, it's right around what I thought
the others have been. So it's at 91, I think, last I looked, which is pretty closer. Good. Still, I would still rate the first two higher than that.
Yeah.
And maybe, hopefully, this one too. Yeah. I haven't really been paying a lot of attention just because I don't, don't
want to ruin it. We're about to play it.
So. I mean, I don't really care about spoilers, but I'm not going to look for them. I did watch some of the videos where they were showing the fast travel thing, which is fucking amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, that is Insomniac are wizards as always. Yeah. And I love the thing where like you pick another part of the map and you just hold the button and you just jump right into it. And people are like, well, they're covering the load time with the holding the thing. And an Insomniac guy popped up and was like, no, that's not covering that at all. They're covering nothing. There's no load there. It's literally there so you don't click the map and accidentally just jump to another part of the map. It's a confirmation hold. It's not a loading cover. There is no load time.
It's awesome though that we have consoles where the loading is so fast that people would assume that small amount of time is covering the loading. Like,
yeah, I mean that would still be impressive if that was what was happening.
Yeah,
but he was like, the dev was like, if you let go of the button even when it's like 3/4 of the way to the end, it will just jump right back to where you were.
Oh,
like it's not covering any load time.
Yeah. So big games coming here in the next 7 days, but we got some good ones to talk with you guys about today. Let's take a look at.
Although,
the chat.
what was the thing? Chris Baker pointed out. I don't remember which review it was, but Chris Baker pointed out that one of the reviews, their little blurb was that it was web crawlingly fantastic or something, web crawlingly great, which doesn't mean anything.
It really doesn't.
That's not
that's not a thing.
Also, he's the web crawling. He's the wall crawler or the web slinger.
Yeah, they're combining the two.
Don't try to speak when you don't know what the
hell you're talking about. Yeah. Let's see. A couple things before we get going. First of all, I just mentioned this like a month ago that we were having like our Twitch Prime numbers were in a free fall, and I'd asked like you guys to like re-engage with it if you could. Well, we just got the next payout, and it was even worse than the one from a month ago. So I don't know if you guys just are like, to spite me, you guys aren't subscribing with Twitch Prime, but like, we really need it. Literally, we just got paid out. It was the lowest we've ever had from Twitch Prime, ever. Even the first month when we were trying to get people to figure it out, we got more than we just got. So I don't know what I need to say to tell you guys to get to do it or convince you guys to do it, but we need that money. Like, it's not like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, if I can't convince you guys to do something for free to help us, like, what can you do? Like, if you guys won't spend 3 seconds to help us for free, like, I don't know what else I can say about it, Matt. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like, we need the money. We're not getting the money anymore, and it doesn't seem like anything that I say makes a difference. And in fact, the last time I talked about it, less of you did it. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know why you guys have decided that like a couple seconds of your time every month isn't worth helping us out, but we really need you guys to come to show up and like do Twitch Prime. So if you're watching this, you're watching it on YouTube, you haven't done it for months, can you please? I know a bunch of you guys are turning on ad blocker watching GameFace as well on YouTube. Like, please can you take 3 seconds to just go to twitch.tv/SIFTDgames and click 2 buttons. That's all it is. I don't understand why it's so hard. And I don't want to ask or beg, but like, we need the money. I'm just telling you, I'm not making this up. Like, without that, this all falls apart. So if you guys like GameFace, if you like Pactor Factor, spend the 2 seconds, man. I don't it hurts my heart. I can't, it's so disheartening that you guys won't do it. I don't understand it. Like, are you doing it to spite me? I don't know. Like, it hurts. That's all I can say. When I saw that amount today, my heart, like, sunk. Like, I don't know. What the hell, man? I don't understand it.
I think part of it is a lot of people are not subscribing to Prime anymore.
Maybe because the cost has gone up so much.
Through the roof.
It really is. I will say
and I can't blame anybody for not wanting to give more money to Jeff Bezos.
I agree with that. And I'll tell you what, I do understand that because the price of Amazon Prime is insane. Like, it's like up to what, like $160 a year now?
It's nuts.
And now they're going to ask us for like $3 a month to watch ad-free content on Amazon
The YouTube
Prime?
thing that's been going on as well has been like,
yeah,
great.
Look,
I mean,
if you're one of those
ridiculous.
people who have decided to not use Amazon Prime at a principle, I totally get it. I'm not talking to you. So I do understand that angle for sure. Because I'm also on the fringe of like, is this worth it now?
It's
do
more,
I ship that much stuff?
It's
it probably still is worth it.
Has it tripled in price since it started?
Almost.
It's got to be close, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I do get that angle. I'm just telling you guys, I don't know what else I can say. Like, we need the money. And so please help. Like, I don't know what else to say anymore. It's very frustrating. And again, it just hurts. Like, I feel like we're supplying an awesome show for you guys for free if you're watching it on YouTube. And I'm just like, come on, man. Help a brother out. We're all brothers here. We're all gamers. I don't know. Again, I don't know what to say anymore about it. So I guess I should just move on. But anyway, let's take a look at chat because all these folks are hooking us up with Twitch Prime and are showing up and are buying subs in our chat and giving them to people in chat. So let's maybe focus on the good stuff and the good people who are showing up and helping us out. And look at all these Twitch Prime folks today, which is great. B. Martin 3223, thank you. Who else also thanks people? Every single person who subscribes with Twitch Prime. Do any of the other?
Yeah,
they do.
I don't know about gaming podcasts. All the board game podcasts I do generally do.
Costa K-Kip. See, I think this. I don't know how to pronounce it. Caustic IP, maybe, is what it is. Thank you. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. If not, let me know. Tota Mish, thank you for Twitch Prime. The McWomble, thank you. Hope you're doing good. J Reed Vic 7, thank you. Toast 9, thank you. Look at all these rolling in. Jilt 31, thank you for Twitch Prime. Maybe my diatribe got some people to do it today because there's more.
These are
now.
all before that.
Talimper, thank you for Twitch Prime. Mersh, thank you for Twitch Prime. Who else we got here? God of Gamblers, thank you. David 5807, thank you. Aussie Brit 2000, thank you. Get Up Kid 1284, thank you. This is awesome. Nightmare 452 says, I don't have Prime. Has never had Prime. Interesting.
I mean, if you don't order enough stuff from Prime to warrant the free shipping being a savings at the end of the year, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is like, it still doesn't take that much shipping to cover the cost. I mean, that's the truth of it, really. Like, if you buy one big item, that almost covers like the whole 160 or whatever. Like, the problem was it was such a great deal when it launched. It's kind of like Uber. Like, Uber is still like a little bit cheaper than cabs, but now you think Uber sucks because when it first launched, it was like a third of the cost of cabs, and now its price has slowly crept up, and like the same thing's happened with Amazon Prime.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that all across every kind of tech sector right now, where like the pricing and the models are slowly sort of reconfiguring back to the pre-tech disruption form. You're seeing that with basically streaming becoming cable. Yeah, you're seeing that with Uber and Lyft have to charge what taxis do. Because there's a reason those were the way they were. Yeah. Like the pricing on that stuff wasn't just like that way because somebody decided, hey, that's what people will pay, so we'll steal it from them. It was that way because that's what you need to charge to be sustainable. Yeah. And eventually, the disruption was because people were the disruption happens because everybody's throwing the VC money into stuff, and then eventually you run out of your startup money, and you got to actually have a business, and that's why you have to pay $50 to go downtown with Uber now instead of the $5 it cost to go to E3 2016. Yeah, it's the other thing that's gone up that I've noticed is the Bird scooters. So when the Bird scooters first launched, and if you guys don't know, those used to be like nickels.
They were nothing. The first time I rode a Bird scooter, one of my buddies came into LA for a vacation with his family, and we went down to the beach, Santa Monica and Venice Beach, and rented scooters. We rode them up and down the beach all day, literally like 12 hours. When I finished, I owed like $18. My sister, who came here with her nephew a couple months ago, we went down to try to do the same thing. First of all, you can't ride them on the beach anymore. The wheels lock if you get within 2 blocks of the beach. And they lock, and you have to pick them up and carry them to where they unlock. It's crazy. But anyway, we rode them for like 2 hours, and my bill was like $80. So those two have just now skyrocketed to the point where it's like they're not worth it anymore.
But you remember like back in the day when like this street was just Bird scooters they were just everywhere. There were every evening you'd have people driving through, loading them up into their car to do the charging, get paid for that. That's all gone. All gone.
Because they became so expensive that
it's weird to see one now.
It is, especially out in this part of town. Like down by the beach, there's still tons of people that ride.
Tourist stuff. There's tourists. A little more downtown sometimes, although mostly the ones downtown get destroyed if you leave them around too long.
Anyway, next is Six Batty. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Mike's Q. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Hope you're doing good, fellow Central Pennsylvanian. Mike's Q says taxis are still a huge racket. I agree. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. My MK Ness says everyone was racing to the bottom, trying to be the next big thing, and then once they have the mind share, then they increase the price to be sustainable. Yeah, that's pretty much how it happens. So
because what you're really doing as the people starting that company is you want to sell that company to somebody else, get your money, and not have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, and you can't do that until you're close to being profitable.
Right, and not always, because sometimes early on, not anymore, but in the heyday, the big companies were too dumb. They're like, we want that, and we can't do it ourselves, so we're going to acquire it. Now we have it, and now the guy who started that knew he was never going to need to run that company as a sustainable business. He was going to offload it to a mega corporation that wanted that in its portfolio. Yeah. And so in that regard, you don't need to worry about the business model. You just need to make it hot. Yeah.
So somebody buys it, because that's your goal if you launch a company.
And that, sell it. And that, by the way, is the model that the studios followed on the streaming services and didn't realize that doesn't work when you intend to keep the service and have it somehow be sustainable, which is why almost all the streaming services went up again in price this week. Yeah. And that's going to continue. Disney Plus still doesn't cost as much as it needs to cost to be some kind of revenue stream that could actually keep up with the residual payments they're going to need to pay after they finally settle the SAG strike.
That's true. Yeah.
It's actually very, very funny. Yeah. And there's a point at which all this stuff becomes so expensive, we're like, why don't we take all these streaming services and, I don't know, bundle them all together and have a third party broker them to you, but what would we call that?
Cable.
We'll call it cable after the thing we used to wrap them all together.
Yep. The bundle.
It's almost like there was a reason it worked that way.
Well, we did get a few years of a good deal at least. It's better than no years of a good deal.
But now you can't buy DVDs.
No, you're right. So we're actually going to talk about that in just a second. Okay, so I've asked you about Twitch Prime, which would be awesome. However, if you are someone who really wants to support us over the long term, head to patreon.com/SIFTD, SIFTD. Obviously, that's ideal because recurring revenue we can count on and we can plan around. So we appreciate anything you guys can do to help us. It all would be awesome. With that, it's time to get on with our housekeeping. We have a pretty big housekeeping today, but nothing gigantic. The first story we're going to discuss is probably the biggest one. We've also talked about it like a million times, but it still is a landmark moment in the games industry. Finally, Matt, the Activision Blizzard deal closed. It finally went through for good. There's no turning back now. It's happening. finally,
weirdly, everything feels about the same.
Yeah, you're right, though. I mean, what really changed for any of us? Really nothing, honestly. Nope. However, the big news this week that went along with them announcing that the deal had closed is that big games from Activision aren't hitting Game Pass until 2024. So people kind of hope the deal would go through just in time for the new Call of Duty to come out. Diablo 4 is already out there. People were kind of hoping, hey, maybe on day one the Switch gets flipped and we have, Diablo 4 sitting there, and then in a few weeks we have the new Call of Duty, but that is not going to be the case.
As anyone who understands how the world works knew.
Yeah.
That's too fast. Like, the deal closed, but the actual, physical job of merging the companies and all their stuff is going to take a long time.
Just like figuring out what redundancies you have and which departments you can cut from Activision or
most of the Activision executive wing. How about that?
Well, the good news is Bobby Kotick announced that he is stepping down. And the funny part was he wanted to step down more quickly, and Microsoft is asking him to stay around for like a couple months.
Stay around in case you're liable for some shit.
Maybe.
I mean, there's some accountability there, I'm sure.
There might be.
It's like, wait, we need to know where to reach you.
Yeah.
Dude, don't go to Aruba just yet.
I mean, let's be honest.
God knows what you're going to find under that rock.
True. Let's be honest. Most people like us are not fans of Bobby Kotick, and we never really have been. There also, Seamus Blackley shared yesterday that he had actually pitched Guitar Hero to Bobby Kotick years and years before it actually hit, and Bobby turned it down. And then later on, Bobby was like, oh, I changed my mind. That sounds like a good idea now. But anyway, Bobby Kotick's going to stick around for a couple more months. I tend to agree with Matt that it's probably going to be something where they just want to make sure that they have all the loose ends tied up and stuff like that before they let him go and kind of go on with his life. I wonder if he'll retire or if he'll end up surfacing at some other gaming company.
I mean, I don't know. I would imagine he could surface at another corporation. I don't think he cares about gaming.
Well, the other thing too is that he'll never make as much money as he's making at Activision now.
Well, because also everybody in the corporate world knows he's a fraud.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
Literally and figuratively, allegedly. But it's yeah. I mean, the man has more money than God. Just go,
the good news for him is
go away and leave us alone and enjoy your weird little life of whatever it is you think is fun.
He definitely has plenty of go away money, to say the least. So it's a done deal. We're not going to see any sort of fruits of Microsoft's labor really until next year. Obviously, we've already seen a little bit of it with the other acquisitions. If you're a Game Pass subscriber,
just
you got Starfield.
Even just for paperwork, you probably want to wait until the new fiscal year.
Yeah.
But I would imagine we'll start to see some of that. I know Hasbro is pushing very hard to get the Transformers games back on the market.
Yeah.
Because Hasbro owns. That's the thing, is Hasbro owns those. They can do whatever they want, and but they just needed Activision to basically cooperate because Activision holds the code and all that. So they want to bring those back, and they also wanted to bring specifically the Fall of Cybertron and War for Cybertron ones because those relate to the same story period that the animated movie coming out next year is going to. And then there's a lot of people talking about Marvel wanting to poke at bringing back the old Spider-Man games and maybe the Marvel Ultimate Alliance stuff and all that, which would be a pretty big... I mean, people that demand for that. I don't know if you noticed, but the Marvel Ultimate Alliance stuff has never lost its luster, even though they keep putting it out and pulling it again.
Yeah.
I saw a code for for a Steam code for the bundle of those two go for $500 last month.
Well, look, they put out that last one for Switch, and I probably played it for 30 hours. So
yeah, I mean,
let's be honest.
You cannot
it's a formula. It's hard.
You cannot tell me that a remastered Spider-Man collection wouldn't sell.
Yeah.
I don't even care what bundle the movie games, bundle the non-movie, whatever the hell you know what, I'll pay you $50 for a Web of Shadows remake right now.
Yeah. I suspect we'll see the majority of Activision's back catalog on Game Pass by March or April of next year, all the old stuff that will easily work on Xbox or PC.
I think that'll be kind of the big Q2 thing. I think because I think they'll launch fiscal with look at all of the Activision stuff on Game Pass.
Yeah, next year is going to be a great year for Xbox, just in general. You're going to see a lot of fruits of the labors coming to bear in 2024. Not just with that, but with all the studios that Microsoft has bought. There's so many games that are in development already that we've been waiting for a while, and we're about to talk about one of them here in a minute that we waited a long time for. But anyway, my guess is early, mid next year, you'll start to see a lot of this Activision stuff rolling into Game Pass, which will be a huge boon for Microsoft in getting its service into more hands, because it does feel a little bit like Game Pass is stalled a little as far as like gaining new. At least we haven't received any word from Microsoft saying, "Hey, look at this explosion of subscribers," which you would think they put out a press release if that were the case.
Yeah, well, they're also trying to focus on the actual. They've actually got games to talk about now, so
that's true.
They don't need to push the subscription numbers as much.
That's a good point. So anyway, that's the deal. The deal went through. Big stuff hitting Game Pass next year, and Bobby Kotick is out. I'm sure there's a few people out there doing their happy dance right now hearing that news. Next up, and this might be something that Matt and I care about a lot more than you guys, and we're not going to talk about it all that much. But someone that we've worked with for decades now, Matt, has left Bethesda, and that is Pete Hines. You guys may not even recognize or know who Pete Hines is, but I guarantee after you watch his B-roll, you'll be like, that dude. But for Matt and I, it runs way deeper than that. He has basically been the head of PR at Bethesda for 24 years. I can't tell you how many times I went to Bethesda events, and he was the guy coordinating the events, and you get there, and he's the one who's like walking you through all the games that are there. He was the one who did all the Q&As. Anytime Bethesda debuted something to the press, he was the guy who answered all the questions from the press. He was the guy who communicated with the press. He was the gatekeeper as far as review code from Bethesda. He was, to me, Matt, more than Todd Howard, he was Bethesda. As somebody who worked in the industry, you worked with Pete Hines and talked to Pete Hines way more than anybody else at Bethesda.
I mean, he's definitely the face of it for anyone outside the company. I would argue Todd is the guy who, generally the guy who makes those games what they are.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, Pete isn't a developer at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he understands development enough to work with the press, but he's not a developer himself. But now you see him there, like, I'm sure you see him, you're like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy dozens and dozens of times. He was always on stage at Bethesda's E3 press conferences. He usually was like the MC of the press conferences. He would go on Xbox's stage a lot of times if Todd couldn't do it, to show off Bethesda's games at Xbox's press conference. And the thing about it, he's just a great dude. I feel like we say this all the time, Matt, when people move, or we're always like, what a great dude. They are. Like, all the OGs.
If they're not a great dude, I'll let you know.
Right. Believe me, we will let you know. It is crazy, though, what a high percentage of people, OG games industry people, are amazing people. Seriously. Like, you can think of like one or two of the bad ones, because there are so few bad ones. But he was one of the good ones. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with him for the last 20-some years. And basically what he said was like, he just felt like the launch of Starfield was a good exit point for him. My guess is... It's
either that or stick around for 6 more years until Elder Scrolls 6 comes out.
Right.
So.
And my guess, too, is that he just got paid out big time.
Some of that, but also, like, I think, he has clearly has a good idea of how long it's going to be till their next major project, and it's time to enjoy some life.
Yeah, and he did say that too.
He's retiring.
Yeah, he posted a big thing on Facebook. He posted a short thing on Twitter for everybody, but then on Facebook, it's like people that he just knows. He posted sort of a longer thing.
And I'll tell you this much: get ready for the same thing from Todd after Elder Scrolls 6.
I have that feeling too, man. Yeah, and I mean that'll make big waves for people because he affects the games.
Yeah,
like Pete. He worked with us behind the scenes, and he was kind of the front man for a lot of their press events and things like that. But Todd's the one who actually makes the games. And once he decides to leave, I don't know what'll happen, honestly. Like, because it doesn't feel
I'm sure he has proteges.
It doesn't feel like there have been, though. Like,
because you don't know anything about the internal situation. Like,
I kind of do.
He's just the face. Like, there's definitely people in there that understand Todd's philosophy on games.
I will say this. I know the inner workings of Bethesda probably better than any other developer, because I was really good friends with their head of PR, Tracy Thompson. And she would tell me things off the record that I couldn't report on or I couldn't share with you guys on the show, but she would tell me what was going on behind the scenes all the time.
Well, he's got like 6 years.
But she left too. Like, she left and went to EA like a year and a half or 2 years ago. So she's not at Bethesda anymore. Now, Pete's left.
I promise, even in Elder Scrolls 7, your companion will still block the fucking door when you try to...
You mean Elder Scrolls 6?
No, I mean 7. This will be the first one he didn't miss.
Oh, got you. Yeah, it's funny.
The tradition will continue.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a big loss for Bethesda. It's a big loss, but I mean, now that they've been assimilated into Microsoft, there's going to be somebody else who's going to take up that mantle. In fact, like the B-roll that we just showed you from the roundtable that they did when they were acquired by Microsoft, like some of the people in that, I have a feeling will start taking his place in some of the stuff that he was doing going forward. So anyway, best of luck to Pete Hines going forward. I totally realize this is more Matt and I than you guys, but now that I think you saw him in the B-roll, you do remember who he is and that it's a big loss. So best of luck, Pete Hines. Thank you for everything that you did for us. And the other thing, too, is that Bethesda has been a great supporter of SIFTD. Like, we're smaller, and so it's been interesting to see, once I left the big gig where everybody wanted to work with us and then started something smaller, who the people were who still valued our coverage. And Bethesda is one of them. We still get all their games early, and a big part of that was Pete Hines and Tracy Thompson, making sure that before they left or while they were there, that their PR wing was hooking us up. So big thanks to Pete, and best of luck in your retirement. You have earned it, my friend. Next up in housekeeping, this is a really disappointing story, Matt, but not surprising at all. So the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam did a Pokemon exhibit where it was like Pokemon art, like in the style of Van Gogh. It was really cool. But one of the things that they did was that they had a limited edition Pokemon card that they were giving out. So if you paid...
rookie mistake.
So if you paid the money to get into the museum, which if I remember correctly when I was there, it was like $18, I think. It's been 10 years now since I've been there. Awesome museum, by the way. Try to go there if you can. But anyway, if you paid your entry fee, they gave you the card. And of course, once that got around the internet, next thing you know, there's like tons of man children hanging out outside the Van Gogh Museum trying to get the free cards, because what was happening was those cards were selling for exorbitant rates on eBay. So basically, once again, the man children decided to ruin something that was designed for children, because the whole idea was to get more kids into the Van Gogh Museum. They're like, kids don't come because it's Van Gogh. And they're like, maybe if we do a Pokemon thing, we can get younger people into our museum. Instead, you get a bunch of man children coming in there trying to make money off of your cards. So the Van Gogh Museum...
It's the Szechuan sauce.
Yeah, exactly. The Van Gogh Museum had to stop the promotion because it got so bad. There were people fighting, pushing each other, arguing in line.
The video is remarkable. That's the Black Friday B-roll we've been missing for years now.
I mean, Matt, I've seen video of like Target and Walmart when they get the packs in, and it's like they open the gates and the people run. Like, I've seen videos of like grown adults pushing kids down and like knocking them aside to try to get the box of cards.
I was there when the episode 1 merchandise hit at Toys R Us at midnight.
Yeah, same deal, kind of, I'm guessing. So this is just despicable. Like, I don't understand people anymore, Matt. It's like, why? It's like, is the money worth it? I guess it is to some people.
They were selling for like over 100 at one point. So
which is, I mean, it's what, like $80 profit. Is it worth like ruining?
I mean, these guys were getting 50, 60, 100 of them. Like they were buying tons of entry tickets, not going in the museum and just getting the card
because they knew that they could flip it and sell it and make $80 off each one of them. Yeah, and
it wasn't just that people were being assholes and rioting in the. It was also that no kids were getting the cards.
Right.
Like the whole purpose was so why do it?
Yeah.
If you're just going to make a bunch of
if your objective was to get younger people into your museum, and instead you have a bunch of adults fighting each other for the cards. Like...
And it was amazing to me where I was seeing people report on this, and all the responses were like, "Well, how can we get the cards now?"
Yeah.
And it's just like. Just remarkable.
It really is. Stolte69, thank you for Twitch Prime. I saw you slid in there. I just... People never cease to amaze me, Matt. Just when I think I've seen it all, and the older I get, the more I think that I've seen it all, and the more surprising it is when I realize that I have not. Like, I just don't get it. Like, taking the joy away from kids to make $80, like, that just doesn't compute. But
Einstein had it right.
Yeah.
Only two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity, and I'm not sure about the former.
There you go. So anyway, I think they're going to sell the cards now some way through like an online retailer,
some alternate way to do that,
crap. Yeah. Like
one of the key things when it comes to Nintendo stuff, and probably specifically Pokemon stuff, but just Nintendo fans in general are sort of like. Don't sell an exclusive thing at one particular geographic location. Yeah. Because they are going to descend on you like locusts.
There's a little bit of naivete on the part of the museum. Like, I'm not trying to absolve the adults from acting like 5-year-olds, but truth be told, if they had done a little bit of research, like if they had talked to the Duck Consulting Agency, we could have told them that this was going to happen.
Yeah, you should have learned from the fucking Happy Meal thing.
Right. Or a bunch of other stuff that's happened with adults.
Yeah. But like a Happy Meal thing was specifically Pokemon.
It was, yeah.
Like you have actual empirical evidence that adult Pokemon fans cannot handle this shit.
You're right. That's true. So I guess I would assign a little bit of culpability to the museum. They could have done it smarter. They could have done it better. But at the same time,
they could have just limited it one per person.
Yeah. One thing that really frustrates me...
Maybe they did and it didn't matter. I don't know.
One thing that really frustrates me, it seems like in our society lately, a lot of people try to blame the people who react to the jerk instead of the jerk. Mm-hmm. It's like the jerk does something jerky, and then instead of saying, oh, that jerk's caused all the problems, they always go after the people who reacts to what the jerk did. That drives me bonkers. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, if it weren't for the jerk, he started the dominoes. If it weren't for the jerk, none of the other stuff happens.
Well, because nobody wants to take responsibility for what they've done, and it's even worse post-lockdown.
It does seem
as anyone who has been to a concert can tell you.
It's true, which I was just at one on Saturday
Was it
night.
Worse than usual to you? Was it like maybe not that crowd?
The venue that I went to was like they didn't overbook it, so it wasn't like it was crowded and cramped and hot and everything. And some woman poured a drink all the way down me.
Wow.
And then tried to tell me it was water. And I smelled it, and I'm like, that's vodka. And she goes, ha ha, and like turned away from me.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So there's stuff like that. Like
when I was at the same venue back in June, I think it was, maybe it was May. I can't remember when I did that, but it was there was a guy in front of me. He wasn't in front of me. I was just standing watching the band, and in the last like third of the show, people kept like shuffling in between groups of people. I'm just like, no, there's no room for another person here, and they just knock you out of the way.
That happened for sure. And people just butting in and making everybody stand like this.
Yeah. At one point, a bunch of them came in and they're filing in front of me, and this other guy comes in like right in front of me and suddenly realizes he's like an inch away from my nose and turns and sees me and sees the look on my face, and he just like goes back the other way. So I was able to see. No one else around me was. But it was like near the last third of the show, this guy comes in front of with his little posse, runs in, and he pulls out a hand fan this big.
Oh my god!
And starts fanning himself, and so he's just fanning his BO at me behind him. And I'm not gonna lie, it was hot, and the breeze was nice, ignoring how he smelled.
Yeah.
But you couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Do you understand that you are in public? Do you understand that you are not in your living room, you fucking assholes?
Self-centered, yeah.
The self-involvement is out of control out there.
Yeah, it really is. So anyway, once again, a bunch of adults ruined something for kids. News at 11. It seems like it happens every month for whatever reason. So Matt hinted at this a little bit earlier. Another story from this week is that Best Buy is going to discontinue physical media. And at first it seemed like it was just going to be CDs, Blu-rays, and things like that. But now things are starting to leak out that no, it's not just that. They're also going to stop selling physical video games at Best Buy. Matt, do you think this is the final nail in the coffin for physical media?
I mean, when Walmart stops selling it, then worry about it.
Yeah.
It's still a pretty major thing. It's on the way down. It's going away eventually. Like, it's just that whole aspect of it is more or less over. People don't collect those things anymore outside of particular enthusiasts. Best Buy is clearly going to shift to a model where it's basically a showroom for appliances.
I wonder if we're going to...
I think Best Buy is not long for this world.
I agree with that. I also wonder if we're going to have a full circle moment where right now everyone's using Walmart, Target, or Best Buy to go and try stuff, and then they go and buy it online at Amazon.
Because it's cheaper.
I'm wondering if we come full circle to where all the brick and mortar stores are gone, and Amazon is like, we have to build a brick and mortar store so people can try stuff out before they buy it from our store.
They've already done that to some degree.
A little bit, yeah.
There are actual physical Amazon retail locations in LA.
Yeah.
A few other places.
I'm just wondering if that proliferates across the country and across the world eventually.
Well, here's the thing. Amazon can do whatever the fuck they want.
Really, it can. It has more money
pretty
than
much the end of it.
God, yeah.
And
because until now,
I will laugh pretty hard if Best Buy folds before GameStop.
It's going to be
possible.
Close.
It's going to be photo
real
finish,
close.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens to physical games? Do you think it just goes to where you can only buy the crazy collector's editions and that's it? Because I don't think those are going away. They make so much money on those.
In some places, some ways, that was already happening with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well,
now physical editions of some games are like a big deal. It's like you have these smaller companies that are doing small print runs. Of
like limited
games.
run game and things. Like that's still a business model that'll function. But then you got like some people are very weird about it. Like I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying that like they're not going to buy Alan Wake 2 because there's no physical version. Like one guy said that Alan Wake is in his top 20 games of all time, and he refuses to buy Alan Wake 2 because he can't buy it on disc.
Out of principle.
And I'm like, out of stupidity is what that is. Because it's like, okay, first,
are you never going to play games again once they all go away?
Especially because like so many people are like citing resale value, and it's like if you're busting your ass to get like $15 back on a game you bought, like you got other problems.
Yeah.
And B, the thing I never really understand about that is like, that's the model that PC games have had for 20 years now. Steam basically made that happen on PC. Yeah. I don't remember the last time I got a physical copy of a PC game. Maybe The Witcher 3.
Well, also it's dumb that every PC game you bought was a box this big and it had one little skinny CD inside it.
I did like the era where they kind of switched to the DVD case models, the snap cases.
That lasted for like a couple years.
That was like 5 years. Yeah. But like, has anyone lost their whole library because has any game not been preserved because you bought it on Steam instead of buying a disc somewhere? Hell, I know where all my Steam games are. I lost some fucking disc games in a couple of moves.
Yeah,
like
you haven't lost your Steam games.
It just ain't that big a deal, especially in an era where everything is only like the game you intend to play when it's got a day one patch on it. Yeah. Like I don't see the I don't see the need for boycotting Alan Wake 2 if you loved the first one because you can't buy a Blu-ray of it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
The funny part about it too is like if you've noticed.
Also, I bet you there will be a limited run version of it somewhere out there. Like, you know, it's too prominent for one of those like smaller companies to not pick it up for something later.
Well, it's interesting too. Like all the new apartment complexes in LA, the apartments are like half the size of the apartment that I live in now because millennials and Gen Z, they don't have anything. Like I have these closets full of crap that I've collected throughout my entire life. Otherwise, like I don't have enough clothes to fill up all the closets in my apartment. They're filled with like collectibles and stuff that I've collected throughout the years. Millennials and Gen Z don't give a crap about that, so they're fine
because they don't have the money for it.
That's one, and two, they just don't really want to collect stuff anyway. So they
a lot of the ones I know
do.
They just can't afford it or don't have space. Yeah, like that space is a problem too.
Well, it's like you just have a little hard drive sitting there that has all your stuff on it instead of having closets full of crap. Like I can see the appeal.
I mean, I do not own a physical Xbox Series X game.
I own one. I have Halo Infinite.
Actually, I technically I have a physical copy of Starfield. But it's really just a code. There's no disc
it's not even really. It looks like a physical game, but it's not.
There's a steelbook in there, but there's no disc in it.
So when do you think we'll get to this point where Best Buy's gone, GameStop is gone, and physical games are almost impossible to find for like
I don't know
weekly releases?
I mean, the Legacy says Limited Run said Walmart stops selling Xbox games next year. I'd say you got about 3 years.
That's what it seems like. Yep, not much longer.
And I will be one. I don't know which one. Probably Sony. One of the next gen systems will not have a disc drive.
Yeah. Which one's going to be brave enough to do it?
I think it'll be PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, they live and die on single player games though.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're already making them without the disc drive.
That's true. Yeah.
They're already moving in that direction.
Yeah. And actually, they moved that direction before Microsoft. Actually.
And remember, they co-own the patent on the Blu-ray. Yeah. They know whether that revenue stream is worth
more than
selling hardware for.
It's true. Yep, you're right. So anyway, it looks like the end is nigh, folks. If you're big physical game collectors, and I'll be honest with you, I still buy physical. Like, I just do. I am coming around. I'll put it to you that way. Like, if this happens in 3 years, I'm not going to be devastated over it. But it's just there's nobody like me anymore. Even you're not like me anymore. No. You know. So I am really like I'm on an island. As somebody who prefers to buy physical stuff. And if you're like me, you're on an island as well. It's you and I hanging out drinking margaritas. But yeah, it looks like in a few years that stuff is all going away.
Hanging out drinking margaritas because you don't have any games to play.
Yeah. Mike's Q says, I still share my PS3, 4, and 5 discs, and my bro and I swap Switch games all the time. We are not ready for the all-digital game. I get it, man. And there's a lot of families that are going to be like that, you know? Or just kids who are like, when I grew up, like I had a Super Nintendo, my best friend had a Genesis, and we just shared all the time, the games, the systems, whatever. All that stuff comes to an end, but I don't feel like people care about that stuff anymore.
No,
they just don't.
Nope.
Yeah,
they'd rather have convenience or not having to clutter things up or all that.
Yeah. Fire Native says, Matt, remember when they said going all digital would make games cheaper?
No,
yeah.
I don't. They never said that. We thought they would because you no longer had the cost of the retail pipeline.
A bunch of costs. But production, distribution.
Walmart stopped that.
Yeah.
That was the thing. I mean, that was originally the plan, but then the retailers said, like, if you do that, then why would anyone buy them from us? And it's like, yeah, exactly.
That's the point.
But then that's had to stay within parity. But they're never, if the retail wing goes away, that's not going to drop costs on digital because they know we'll pay the cost. Although you could argue that really they should cost more than they do. So paying that still is probably cheaper than they should be.
Yeah.
For the AAA stuff.
Who eats the cost for the huge volume of physical games that just keep sitting on shelves? Actually, someone's asked Pactor that before. The retailers can send the games back to the publisher. Believe it or not. Like, if they don't sell...
You can return to the distributor, and the distributor has a method of
getting credits back from the publisher. Yeah, so they actually return them...
And then they either get destroyed or...
Just sit somewhere and wait to sell them for $5 or whatever.
Or, as in the case of that box full of Majora's Mask cartridges, get sold for hundreds of dollars
bucks
each.
Years and years later, yeah. Let's see if anyone else has something to share about this stuff. The Legacy already mentioned his comment. And Cinetite just asked his question twice.
Mike's Q is mad about it because he gets all his UHDs from Best Buy and the quality on them is much better than streaming, which is true. Like, I do still buy the 4K discs of movies I really, really love.
Yeah.
Because, it is visibly better. Quality. And streaming will never match that probably until we have unimaginably larger pipelines or figure out how to break the speed of light.
Yeah.
It's just it's noticeable. Usually, streaming quality is fine for most things if you're just going to watch a movie. But if you're going to watch one of your favorites, you have a system that supports it.
Yeah.
Nothing beats an actual disc.
Oh, no doubt about it. Silk Snake. Sneaky, did your old account get banned? Where's your old your screen name? Sneaky Solid Snake. You're Silk Snake now? What did you do? You did something on somebody else's stream and got yourself banned and had to start another account. But he says, today proved how superior physical is. I already have Spidey 2 and I'm playing it all day. Digital buyers have it locked till Friday. Unpatched, of course. Yeah. There's undeniable that there's advantages to physical media. It just is.
Yeah, but I think the last time I found a physical copy that had broken street date was Last of Us 2. So not really benefiting me often enough to maintain an entire industry around it.
It's true. Yep. And I think that's it. That's all the comments you guys have on physical versus digital media. And that makes sense because most people are totally okay with buying their games digital. If you notice, there was like a couple people in our chat that are like, hey, I'm like Shane. And that's it. There just aren't that many left like us, unfortunately. Next up, I have to hand it to Remedy because we have managed to talk about Alan Wake 2 in the housekeeping of GameFace for like the last 6 weeks straight. They are dripping out information about that game at the perfect pace to make sure we keep talking about it on this show so that you guys know it's coming out here actually now in like a week and a half or like 2 weeks is coming out. But the news this week is that Alan Wake 2 will get significant paid and free post-launch support in the form of DLC. Does this surprise you at all, Matt?
No, Remedy usually supports their stuff.
I actually don't remember how it has done things in the past.
Control got 2 huge DLC things.
I guess you're right. Yeah, they did do a good job of supporting that post-launch. It also kind of became this weird benchmark game for like Digital Foundry.
Early ray tracing benchmark, yeah.
There's also one section in Control that buckles every system, and like Digital Foundry is waiting to like get that graphics card that can actually run it at like a decent frame rate. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent here. But it does sound like if you do invest your money into Alan Wake 2 later on this month, and actually in just like a week or two, you're going to get significant post-launch support. That is not really the case for a lot of single-player focused games, unfortunately. Even some of the very best ones, like PlayStation. Like, a lot of times we'll get one DLC pack for a PlayStation exclusive game.
Oh, they're usually pretty substantial. I mean, I would say like the Frozen Wild or the Tsushima one or I can't remember the name of the Los Angeles one for Forbidden West. Like, those have all been at least as much as Control got put together.
You mean that their one pack is as big as the two control packs put together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, would I get what I want more? Absolutely. But, like, those are almost, like, half a game.
Yeah. Well, you think about, like, The Last of Us Part 2 didn't really get anything significant.
No, but what can you do with that? Though?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's probably what Factions was going to be, and then all that went where it went, you know. It's like the problem with Naughty Dog in that regard is, like, the stories in those games are such tight, you know, planned things. Like, you can't just, like, randomly bloat them out with DLC or whatever, and nobody really cares about some kind of, like, challenge mode or whatever. Like, the closest you can get is doing something like Lost Legacy, which ended up becoming its own product.
That's what I was getting at. Like, even with Uncharted, they ended up just releasing a separate game. Yeah. Like, it wasn't even DLC. So a lot of the big single-player games don't end up getting a lot of story-based DLC. So I guess this would probably put Alan Wake above the pack as far as that's concerned. But, of course, you have to enjoy the base game first.
Or they do the DLC thing where it changes the base game up so completely that you don't even really like what you're playing anymore.
Yeah, it's true.
Which has happened a couple of times.
Yeah,
not to them. But.
Yeah. But anyway, if you are interested in Alan Wake, and again, it looks like it's going to be the best horror game for Halloween this year. A lot of other games got out of October at the last minute. There's a lot of indie horror games that are coming out here in the next week or two. But the only real big sort of AAA game that's coming out that's going to satiate your thirst for horror around Halloween, it looks like it's going to be Alan Wake 2.
Or at least pointing flashlights at things.
Yeah. Although I'm glad that they did tone down the whole flashlight thing. It's not like a gameplay mechanic like it was before in the last game where you like stun the ghost with the flashlight.
That got old pretty fast.
I mean, it was basically just like a Luigi's Mansion for older players when it came down to it. But all that's gone now. It's just more of a straight over the shoulder survival horror third-person shooter, as you probably got the gist of looking at this B-roll that we just showed you.
Abram, I don't know if I'd quantify Mario Wonder as a horror game.
What?
But it is also a big game coming
Vincent does bring up a good point, though. On Halloween, there is this weird Silent Hill interactive TV series that's coming out, where you and the crowd make decisions as you watch. It's going to be in browser and on both iOS and Android phones. And that comes out literally on Halloween, on the 31st. They just announced the release date for that this morning. It's on SIFTD right now. So that is something else to kind of look forward to. Are you into that kind of stuff, Matt?
Oh, what? That thing? No.
Like those kind of like interactive shows where everybody votes on the decisions and like...
I don't think the audience should get to have any say in anything. So.
It's probably for the best if they just keep their noses out of it. But yeah, to Vincent's point, that does launch on Halloween, but it's not really a video game per se. The Abrams says he was joking, by the way.
Alan Wake did not come way before Luigi's Mansion.
No, Luigi's Mansion was 2000, 2001?
Well, GameCube was 2001, so it would have been launch game, right?
2001. Well, it was Japan 2000. And then, was it a staggered launch for GameCube? I don't remember, actually.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was worldwide.
It was closer than that, I think.
But point being, Luigi's Mansion is from like 2001. And Alan Wake's from what, 2008 or 9? It
was 360, so somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. Yeah, it was. Luigi's Mansion was before Alan Wake, for sure. Slagathor says came way before Luigi's Mansion. Can't be.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that from, bro. So anyway, it does look like Alan Wake 2, if you're into it and you're into survival horror, it looks like it could ultimately validate a full-priced purchase with all the DLC that comes after. And again, don't forget that I said that some of it's going to be free. It's not all going to be paid. Next up, a game from the past, a blast from the past, Matt. Lollipop Chainsaw. What do you remember about this game when it came out?
I remember interviewing James Gunn. And I remember thinking it wasn't a very good game. And that's about it.
This game was made by James Gunn. Believe it or not. You guys all know who James Gunn is now. He's was a part of the MCU. Now they're trying to get him to save the DCU, right?
Yeah, well, he's in charge of the DCU.
Is he the head of all of that now?
He is the Kevin Feige of the DC movies now.
Do you think it's going to work?
I think he will make a good Superman movie.
Yeah.
After that, I don't know how you keep the momentum going, but he's going to try.
I don't think it could get any worse.
No,
honestly.
Probably not. Zack Snyder is a hard act to top when it comes to terrible.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah.
He will make a Superman movie that is probably the first good Superman movie since Superman 2.
Yeah, from like the 80s.
But beyond
that,
that,
the 70s.
But beyond, that was 1980, 81?
It was close.
80.
It was right. I knew it was right around the turn, yeah.
It was 80, because they shot Superman 1 and 2 basically at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 was 78, so yeah, 80 was Superman 2. So Superman Legacy, I'm sure will be... I mean, the man who gave us the Guardians trilogy and the Guardians Holiday Special has a good Superman movie in him. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. The problem is, after that, you have to make audiences care about DC characters, and that's a challenge. I don't know what you do there, because it's just not really... And Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, obviously the Holy Trinity, but... beyond that, like, you know, it's very hard to get people interested in things unless you're making actually good movies that have some humanity to them, which I think Blue Beetle did. Yeah. But the fact that Warner Brothers decided to push Flash instead of Blue Beetle this summer for their one big bet is sort of an indication that they definitely need the help. So maybe James Gunn will be able to introduce some sanity over there. I'm hoping they give him, and hopefully they hired him to be like, okay, do whatever you think needs to be done.
This game. Well, if you can't tell by watching his B-roll, James Gunn used to be a different person.
I think he's still the same person.
You think he's still like this?
He's still the guy who came out of Trauma. Yeah. I mean, James Gunn cut his teeth doing schlock.
I've worked with James Gunn for like 2 or 3 years.
He never forgets where he came from. I think that's an admirable thing about him.
So he did this game, and then I worked with him when I worked at Spike TV and Spike.com. He was doing a video series called PG Porn, and we signed his video series exclusively, and it was gigantic. It was basically a video short series that each episode lasted like 3 or 4 minutes, where the whole concept of it was it's shot like a porn, it looks like a porn, it sounds like a porn, but when it comes time for them to actually have sex, something crazy would happen to keep it from happening. And that was the whole concept behind PG Porn. It was gigantic. Like, we would put up an episode, it would do like 3 or 4 million views in like 2 days. Like, and that was back before YouTube was gigantic or whatever. And then because of that, we had that partnership. I actually went with him to Vegas to shoot AVN, which is the Adult Video Network. Like, basically it's a porn convention that happens at the same time as CES every year.
Oh yeah, we had to do that. Well, I mean, I wasn't personally involved in that, but that was a big thing for G4 every year, even though they wouldn't air any of it.
Yeah, well, we did.
Unblurred.
But I worked with him for 2 days. He was the talent and I was the producer. And, like, I got to know James Gunn very, very well. And, like, it's interesting, one, just to see his success, because I knew he was talented when I was working with him. I never dreamed he was going to become as big as he has. But the other thing, too, is just the content. Like, this is what he used to do. Stuff like Lollipop Chainsaw. He's obviously evolved and moved on from this kind of stuff. And to your point, Matt, you're right, this game wasn't that great. But there was really nothing else like it at the time either. There still isn't anything else like it, really. I
mean, it's basically a sexploitation version of No More Heroes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Except it doesn't play as well.
Yeah.
And it's not as funny.
Yeah. Well, the idea, we had gotten news about 2 months ago that they were going to remake this, that they were going to completely gut it and redo it from the ground up. Obviously, with the way things have changed since this game came out, I don't know how you could make it without changing the content at least a little bit, but...
I mean, you'd have to at least give her pants.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And maybe make the combo system more than just that.
Yeah, because you're right. There's like 5 different attacks that you can do.
It's a very boring game.
It really is. Ultimately, it is boring. It's very repetitive and whatever. So what we found out yesterday...
And like, it's not as... The thing about it is, like, it's not as wacky and sexy and violent as it wants you to think it is.
Right. It's just a boring game.
Like, it feels like nobody told the people who made the cutscenes what the content of the actual game was.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's just like, what if Buffy the Vampire Slayer was an R-rated, like, you know, softcore movie kind of thing. But, like, it's mostly just silly.
It is silly. And now they've said that instead of remaking it, they're just going to remaster it.
Well, it sounds more like somebody came to their senses.
Or they're like, I mean, the right call is to just cancel it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think if you're intent on doing this one way or the other, I think it's gonna go the cheaper route, remaster it, as opposed to remaking it from the ground up.
That shot right there, where she just slowly bends over, so you get like the upskirt shot. That's totally James Gunn right there. The Abram is asking, like, what was his involvement with the game? Like, everything pretty much.
He did a lot of
scenario
stuff. I think he did some of the writing and characters, and
he made his idea basically. Yeah, to have this cheerleader killing zombies with a chainsaw basically. And that if you've ever met him, that's the type of stuff he talks about when you're just hanging out. He's like, "What if we did blah, 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 blah?" And you're just like, "Okay, that seems dumb." But
you wanna combine him with what if it snowed in San Francisco guy?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that guy. The pro skier. What was his name?
The snowboarder guy.
No, he's a skier.
Was he a skier?
He was like the trick skier.
Johnny Mosley.
Yeah.
Johnny Mosley's Mad Tricks.
Yeah,
that's what
right.
that was.
Yeah.
A few years later, it did snow in San Francisco, and it turns out what happens is people ride cardboard boxes down the hills.
Yeah.
Which is not as cool as Mad Tricks, but it is pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're a regular on SIFTD, I'm sure you saw the story about this being revived, but unfortunately, as it turns out, it's just going to be a remaster. It's just going to be this game again that looks a little better and probably runs at 1080p instead of 720p. That seems to be the recipe for that type of stuff. So if you're excited about that, you might want to put it on the back burner. It doesn't sound like it's going to be something worth checking out. I would actually be interested in it if they had actually reworked it and really redone the whole game and figured out a different angle on it. But
I think some things are best left unmastered.
Yep. So anyway, Lollipop Chainsaw is going to be a remaster and not a remake. Next up,
at the very least, I'm sure they'll get like coverage.
Yeah.
They'll have people that are going to be outraged by it, and people that are going to be like, remember when games were good and you could see boobs all the time? And they got people like us that are like, that game sucked. Why does anyone give a shit whether anything is happening? So it's a perfect storm of undeserved publicity.
It's true. It's a good way to put it. Next up, a story that got a good bit of traction on SIFTD this week. Sega shared that Like a Dragon Gaiden will launch without any English dub. What do you? My guess is people who like Yakuza or Like a Dragon are like, well, that doesn't matter because I never use the English dub anyway.
Like, if I'm honest, like it's news to me that there are dubs in these games.
Oh, really? Because you would never even think about it.
It never even occurred to me. Like, the only Yakuza game I've played with a dub is Yakuza 1, because the original release of Yakuza 1 on the PS2 only had an English dub, including Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was a decent dub for what it was, but I mean, if there's any game that you should play in the original Japanese, it's these.
Yeah. What about in general? Do you use English dubs when you play games from Japan usually? I do.
Generally. I mean, how many games do I play from Japan anymore? Really?
Not as many as we used to, that's for sure.
I mean, it's like, what, the Resident Evils is not like, English is the default.
Yeah.
Like, Nintendo stuff doesn't usually have a dub worth mentioning.
Right, yeah. But just a reminder, by the way, this is a throwback style game. This is like the old
Final Fantasy 16
games.
I played in English. But I think they wanted you to play that in English.
It seemed like it, yeah.
I think Square wants you to play their games in English.
Yeah, I agree.
Over here.
Yeah.
Look, man, the guy who does Kazuma in this series is so good that it would never occur to me to want another voice actor playing him.
Yeah.
Like,
it seems like that was the sentiment on SIFTD as well. Most people were like, I would never use English dubs in this franchise
that's
anyway.
what that character sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, another voice coming out of that character model sounds wrong to me.
Yeah.
I would feel the same if they recast the Japanese actor too.
Yeah.
Like,
as long as there's subtitles, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all games have subtitles now, so it's not really an issue anymore. I do feel like casual players, though. First of all, I don't think casual players will have any interest in this game. But if they did, I do think most casual players would be like, I want to hear it in English, but they're not the ones who are going to buy this game for sure.
Yeah.
It's mostly otaku who's into the Yakuza franchise.
Although, I mean, it has to be more than that because they sell too much to just be that.
Yeah.
But I think there's only been like one or two that had English dubs. So like if you're into it, you're okay with it.
And they probably have the data anyway that tells them what percentage of people even turns on the English dubs, and they're like, it's just not worth it.
I mean, I'm sure the dubs are fine, but it's just like, why? Especially as something that's just so Japanese. Like it's so Japanese. It's set in Japan. Everyone in it is Japanese.
I couldn't imagine watching a Miike film with an English dub.
Like I would find it less immersive to play it in English.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. So anyway, just a little bit out of the ordinary for a Japanese game. They're not even offer it at launch. I think they are going to offer it later.
They say it's going to come in later.
Yeah. And by then, like the casual people will be long gone, and then it will be there for people who don't really want it anyway. But at least the option will be there eventually. So anyway, Like a Dragon Gaiden, no English dub at launch for those of you that care.
That is a fascinating hold there.
What?
Mike's Q tried to say, remember Arnold Schwarzenegger was not allowed to do the German voice for his character in The Terminator as was deemed too rural of an accent. They didn't want a future robot to sound like an Austrian hillbilly. And the message has been held for bullying.
Wait a minute. They held it for robot and hillbilly.
The highlighted words are robot and hillbilly.
Mike's Q, I'm going to allow your chat message right now. Or wait, somebody
Vincent already did it.
All right.
But I'm like, the fact that robot was one of the bully words is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, Ready Rocksteady, thank you for gifting Tier 1 subs to people in our chat, man. That's awesome. By the way, now you can watch Pactor Factor a week early if you just got a sub from him. It's on our channel at twitch.tv/SIFTDgames. Silk Snake asks, did he ever respond about his username, by the way?
He said it's the same account, but he switched it for work.
Oh, okay. For
no one believed him.
Okay. For English dubs, do you think it'd be better if they used Asian actors with accents? I find it odd seeing Japanese faces with America or European accents. I can understand that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that has happened sometimes.
I think some people might find it distasteful, though, to do that.
In some places, but it's like really, like even back in the day, like a lot of the early Godzilla dubs were dubbed by Asian actors.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
And some of them had accents, some of them didn't.
Yeah.
George Takei's first Hollywood job was dubbing a character in the English dub of Godzilla Raids Again, which we know as Gigantus the Fire Monster, the second Godzilla movie. I don't know if that's really necessary.
Yeah, that might be going a little too far, maybe.
I would argue that in a game like Yakuza, if I were casting, I would want to cast all Japanese actors. I would cast actors appropriate to, I mean, there's not just Japanese people in those games. There's Americans and Chinese, and I would cast ethnically appropriate actors. Like, I don't think in 2023 you want white people voicing Asian
and you don't have to
characters.
The
There's
networking is there to find the people, and
there's plenty of Asian actors out there, voice actors ready to do that and able to do it. So do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Accent or no accent, it doesn't matter.
Yep. You may remember, moving on, a free-to-play first-person shooter from Ubisoft that we covered a few months ago. It's a game called XDefiant, and I had played Ubisoft's prior attempt at a free-to-play shooter, which was called, Hyperscape, I think it was. It had the crazy verticality, up on the top of the skyscrapers.
Almost like a dodgeball kind of thing.
Yeah, that lasted 6 months before it folded.
Is that roller derby thing still going?
It is still up. Yeah, they haven't taken it down yet. So that didn't work, and Ubisoft was like, okay, well, let's go the more traditional sort. I wouldn't call this a Call of Duty game, but it is certainly more close to Call of Duty than Hyperscape was. It's a more traditional first-person shooter, and it is free to play. I had a good bit of fun when I was playing it, and I was kind of impressed. I was like, this is way better than Hyperscape.
Is this the one where it's got different characters from the different UB franchises, not that you'd ever know because they all look the same?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. But they also weren't the big characters, really.
No, it's not like you're going to be like, hey, it's that guy from The Division. What?
Yeah. Who? Exactly. Well, unfortunately, this game has been delayed indefinitely. And it's really weird. If you go and look for the coverage of this, almost everybody was positive on this game.
Big Dave Lazard says, where's Sleeping Dogs 2? They cast Asian actors. Sleeping Dogs 2 is in the Activision catalog.
It is, yeah.
Actually, no, it's not. True Crime is.
Oh,
Sleeping Dogs was originally
Streets of LA.
Yeah. So I think Microsoft could theoretically take the True Crime IP and do a spiritual successor to Sleeping Dogs. That would be what I would want to do if I were in charge of Microsoft now.
That would be smart. Yep. So anyway, I was impressed by this shooter. If you look around at coverage that everyone else did, everybody was impressed with it. Everyone was like, finally, Ubisoft has figured it out. It has a free-to-play shooter that has a chance. And I played this for dozens of hours one week.
Yeah, part of the problem is that watching the B-roll of this, the time you did talk about it, made me want to start reading a book on my phone.
Oh, really?
It does not make a good impression.
Interesting.
I'm sure it's more fun to play, but I look at this and it looks like the most generic thing I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah. I mean, it does lack a personality, but when Ubisoft tried to create a shooter with a personality, it bombed.
Well, Hyperscape's personality sucks.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm right in the middle in there somewhere.
I mean, you're not wrong. But anyway, Ubisoft has worked on this for years, and again, the response from most of the press was positive, and it's just basically delayed it indefinitely. I have no idea what could have happened with this game. Again, it was in early access for months and months, and it's just very out of the ordinary for this to happen. For
Well,
a game,
it failed some kind of thing, didn't it?
Are you thinking about Second Extinction, maybe?
No, it didn't get certified or something.
I thought that was Second Extinction, that dinosaur shooter that we covered also. That was just canceled, by the way, before it came out of early access.
I don't know what that is.
It was a cooperative dinosaur shooter that we covered probably like 6 months ago, something like that.
Really?
But I played it. Yeah, but they canceled it. Like, the team that was working on it said that we're too small, we can't fix it because they failed certification.
How many co-op dinosaur shooters were coming out this year?
Yeah. Well, they did fail. They failed Valve certification. And the notes that Valve sent back to them, they're like, we don't have the team to be able to fix that. And so they just had to just cancel the game. That's really disheartening.
I don't think I remembered that. I saw something about a Defiant thing failing some kind of certification. I didn't care because I didn't remember that was what this was.
Yeah.
I thought it was just some random game.
Or Ethium says Exoprimal came out. Exoprimal is a different game from Second Extinction.
Yeah, that's the other dinosaur shooter. I was
right.
Like, wait, is there more than one of those things? Okay.
Yeah. That was Capcom's game.
Yeah.
Which actually was kind of fun, but didn't have a lot of staying power, unfortunately.
It was fine.
So anyway, this game XDefiant, I really thought it had a future, and so I'm not sure what exactly happened to it, but it's not coming out now for the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens with it, and we'll give you updates on it as soon as we get it.
Delayed XDefiantly.
Yeah, but I was really surprised to hear that. And then
maybe Ubisoft's just tired of throwing money in a hole. Make some fucking single player shit, like because Mirage is selling really well.
It sounds like it is, yeah. Yeah, it sold as well as Valhalla its first few days on the market.
That's crazy
in Europe, which is crazy. You're right. Yeah, I'm surprised.
I would not have thought that would occur.
Me either. But I guess the whole concept of the throwback is something that appeals.
Throwback.
To people.
I think Assassin's Creed as a brand just has cachet. It still does.
Yeah.
Even after all this time and after all these.
And it took a year off.
After all these errors. I mean, yeah, it took 3 years off.
Yeah, and still the game's
still there.
Really
Everybody knows Assassin's Creed.
Yep. So anyway, you may be right. Maybe Ubisoft is like, let's just stay in our lane and be like, we're good at making single-player stuff. We're not good at multiplayer shooters. Like,
I mean, I'm very on board with that.
Obviously, they have their anomaly, which is Rainbow Six Siege, which is huge.
Right, but that's still going. They've got that.
But like that also, to your point, is unique. It's a tactical shooter, which don't exist anymore.
Yeah, there is no comparison to anything. Like you can't like replace Rainbow Six Siege with another one of those games as a service games because no one else really does that.
But you're right. Looking at XDefiant, you watch it, it's like this could be one of like 10 different shooters.
Yep.
It really could.
And again, the game as a service fad is kind of over, and the pieces of that pie are claimed. Yeah. And it's probably time to move on.
Yeah, it probably is. So anyway, if you're excited for XDefiant, you might Ubisoft just do a wet blanket on your hype. And then the final story for our housekeeping for this week's episode is that now that Netflix has games on its service, you can literally just go on Netflix.
Vincent says it did fail certification on consoles.
Oh, it did? Interesting. I wonder what for.
I don't know.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Vincent. Anyway, the final story for today's housekeeping is that Netflix, now that it's had a little bit of taste of the games industry, what was it? Oxenfree 2 was kind of like its first big story. You could get it if you were a Netflix subscriber. You could get the game for free, and it's looking to expand out
through all the right hoops.
Right. Yeah, and it's looking to expand its games offering. One of the stories was that it wants to get Grand Theft Auto 5 on Netflix for people to play. That was one of the stories for this week.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other story that was more recent from the last couple of days is that it wants to create more games based on its properties, and the first two properties that it mentioned are Squid Game and Wednesday. Did you watch Squid Game, actually? I never asked you about it.
I did watch Squid Game.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it, although it's generic. It's kind of derivative of Battle Royale.
Yeah, like a lot of stuff is.
But, I mean, yeah, it's like, I didn't flip out about how amazing and original it is like so many people who haven't seen Japanese and Korean cinema for the last 20 years did, but it was a pretty good take on it.
It was good. I really enjoyed it.
I finished watching it. I can't say that about every streaming show that comes along.
Yep.
The problem with the Squid Game, and as people have found out as they do spin-offs of it, like the game show they did and the board game they've done, it's the games are only interesting because characters you care about are going to die. They're not actually that fun to play or watch unless you are watching it in the context of a structured narrative.
Right.
So good luck.
Yeah.
Wednesday is probably a better angle because that's one of their most popular shows of all time.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's one of the most watched shows. I think it's one of their top 2 or top 3 most watched shows ever.
I'll say this.
Wednesday was a massive, massive, massive hit.
I'm shocked to hear that. I was pleasantly surprised by it. Like, it's basically Harry Potter.
Because you don't think about the demographic that made it the hit.
That's true.
Barbie, everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the lesson you should be learning from Barbie, is things that serve that demographic, not make movies out of toys.
Right.
And Wednesday's the same thing. It's serving a female demographic that doesn't feel like they are represented particularly properly.
I was surprised. I ended up watching the whole season.
It's good.
I did do some of it on the plane, which,
It's very well. It's also very funny that Addams Family. Even Addams Family. A lot of people don't know Addams Family is very old.
Yeah.
It was a Far Side style comic from the 40s. Mm-hmm. But it has always been shockingly forward-thinking and progressive and positive.
Yeah.
Despite how dark the source material is.
I think that's what's special about the show. Yeah.
Like, if you go back even to the old 60s...
The black and white
sitcom, like, Gomez and Morticia have one of the most, like, positive relationships of any married couple in television.
You're right. More than, like, the Honeymooners, more than, like, all of them.
The Honeymooners is an abusive nightmare.
Yeah, it really was, yeah.
His catchphrase is hitting her so hard she leaves at the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. And, like, you don't really need to do much to change that property and make it work in any given era where they start bringing it back. Even the 90s movies still hold up pretty well.
Yeah.
You've got, I mean, the second 90s movie, Addams Family Values, Wednesday goes to camp and basically leads a revolution where the kids who are forced to play Indians in the Pilgrim play, like, overthrow the Pilgrims.
Right.
Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of that flavor in Wednesday, to be sure. I think narratively, Wednesday will be a better game. I think mechanically, maybe Squid Game makes more sense for a video game.
Squid Game is probably an easier pitch, but I think Wednesday would end up being the better game if you give it the proper attention.
Yeah.
There's been good Addams Family games.
Like, I figured maybe Narcos, something more like adult-oriented would be their choices for this stuff.
I think Narco is a little too generic once you turn it into a game. It's just it's going to look like XDefiant, basically. Also, it's not one of their huge hits.
Narcos wasn't one of their big hits. I thought Narcos is what put Netflix on the map.
Yeah, but they've gotten so much bigger since then, it's just not in the running anymore.
I'll tell you what, Narcos is what got me to subscribe. I was at a buddy's house, and I watched 2 episodes of Narcos at his house, and I went home immediately and subscribed to Netflix to watch the rest.
I can't remember what I subscribed for.
That was me. That was the one that got me over the hump.
I subscribed as a DVD
I had done that, like, years prior. Narcos got me to go to the streaming service.
I actually had a copy of Sunset Drive, Sunset Boulevard, for like a year and a half at one point. Like, I had
never sent it back.
I had it in San Francisco. It came with me when we moved to LA, and like a year later, I found it. I'm like, oh, I should get rid of that because I realized I couldn't get any more DVDs.
Yeah. Vincent does remind us that there was a Narcos game. There was, and it was like way low budget.
Yeah, well, you think,
and that's probably going to be what happens with these two.
Yeah, I'm saying Wednesday has potential. I'm not saying it's going to be good.
Yeah,
they're gonna half-ass it and do some.
Yep, they'll hire some small indie developer to do it.
It is going to turn out. It's going to turn out just about as good as what was it? The Amazon Game Studios attempt thing.
Oh,
that whole
New World. You mean the MMO?
No, remember they tried to make a whole game studio and hired a bunch of people, moved everybody down to San Diego, and never got anything done because Lumberyard is a piece of shit.
Yeah, realized that they couldn't do it. Basically, yeah. So anyway, that's Netflix's targets. We'll see what ultimately comes to fruition. But also, they haven't even started on these, so they're going to be years away. So anyway, Squid Game and Wednesday video games look like they're coming, and more. Netflix properties are apparently going to be brought up for the concept of the interactive entertainment medium. So we'll see how that goes. I do wonder if this is a smart move generally for Netflix to dive into game development and stuff like this. It doesn't make that much sense to me, honestly. They're trying to incentivize people to stay subscribed.
It feels very forced.
Because I
license these things out to make games on normal platforms, fine.
Yeah.
But like trying to make it part of the Netflix service, it's like, I mean, they didn't even do a very. I mean, you would never know you could get games on Netflix ever. Like,
that Oxenfree 2
no
thing was
hint
like
about any of that.
Yeah, it was a joke. Yeah, it's hard to figure out. So anyway, there you go. That's our housekeeping for GameFace episode 362. We're about to get into the bulk of the show, but before we do that, it's time to hear a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles.
It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted.
So as I said, I went to a concert on Saturday. In fact, my sister came into town because she was also a big fan of the band that played. One of my favorite bands, Slowdive, played in LA on Saturday. And again, my sister came into town, and our pregame, before we went to the concert, was with LS Cream. And it's great for that. It's great for all kinds of social situations. My sister loved it. I still have yet to meet someone who even kind of didn't like it, Matt. No one I've ever given it to is like, oh, that's okay. They all love it, including my sister. So head to creamls.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. Right there you can figure out where to buy it, either online or locally at a local store. You can also learn all about the liqueur, and there is a rich history behind it. You can get drink recipes. There's all kinds of awesome stuff there. Again, head to creamls.com/sifted and get sorted. And with that, it's time to kick off the show proper. We're going to start with a game that may be my most disappointing game of 2023 so far. And that game is Forza Motorsport.
That's a bold claim.
I struggle to find other games that are in the same class.
A lot of games have been disappointing this year, but this would definitely be on the nominee list.
I think maybe what's increasing its mind share for me is that it was in development for 6 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to guess that this thing maybe was more in development for a year and a half or so.
Do you think that's what happened?
It feels like they must have started over or gone back to the drawing board a bunch of times, because this is not 6 years of work.
Now, we try to not criticize other critics for their opinions on games on GameFace, because it's like my dad always said, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. And so we try to respect the opinions of others. But I will just say, Matt, that I am completely flummoxed by the aggregate review scores for this game. I hate to ever use a line where we played the same game. But did we play the same game?
I don't know. If you're just going by the driving sim aspect, it's as good as it ever was, if not better.
You mean as far as just the handling of the car,
the driving, how it feels, the physics of everything, the fact that how it feels when the car slows down when you go up. It all feels very real. It feels like driving my TTS when I'm driving the Audi TT in this.
Now my car feels real too.
How it gets slipperier as it rains more. Like it gets less slippery if the rain stops in the first lap, and by the fifth lap, it's dry on the track. It is a sim. It is doing remarkable stuff. But presentationally, I don't recognize this as Forza Motorsport. It's got zero personality, and that has never happened in this series before. And I'm not talking about Horizon. I'm not judging this game by Horizon. It is not Horizon. It has never tried to be Horizon. They are separate things. But Forza Motorsport has traditionally, I've loved this series because it has celebrated the love of cars and driving and racing and all that. And it was the one with personality, and it was the one that didn't make you have to your career mode wasn't just navigating blank menus like Gran Turismo. But that is what the career mode in this is. Yeah. It's just a menu. This is a phrase I never thought I would ever say in my entire life. Gran Turismo 7 has better presentation than Forza Motorsport.
It has better presentation and more personality.
Yeah.
This game is blank slate.
This game is so sterile, it's hard to reconcile it with its title.
It's so sterile, and it's so simple. It's like the whole game, you just navigate menus and just go to the track and race a track. Well, first you have to do 3 laps as a test before you can actually race in the event. But I wonder why, Matt, the industry has just decided that if you're a racing simulation, your game can't have an open world. Now, I get that, like, you got to race on the official tracks, the licensed tracks that you paid all the money for, and the tracks that, honestly, people want to race on. But why can't you just create this magical hub that takes you to all the greatest racetracks in the world? And when you play Forza Horizon, the track isn't in the open world. You start the event, and then it zaps you to that track, and you play on that track. Like,
well, usually the where you're racing in Horizon is part of the open world. It's just
sometimes.
I would say the vast majority of the time.
Really? I thought you got zapped to special tracks.
I mean, you get zapped to another part of the map, so you have to sit around waiting like you do in this for the multiplayer because you can go do other things. But like, no, it's I would say 90% of the time it's part of the open world. Just like they put the corner marker things and everything.
Really?
Yeah, you're racing.
I didn't think that was the case. I thought they were separate from the
Forza
open
Horizon
world.
tracks are the open world. It's like with racing bumpers added to it, basically. That's the whole point. That's why there's locations to go to. But you don't have to. You can just warp or you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I thought that once you got there, you just triggered like...
No. It is literally you start from where that marker is on the map and you race the open world.
Interesting. I thought it was different. But anyway, there's still no reason why they couldn't have an open world for games. Like, there's something interesting to do.
You're just not going to like it. Because, I mean, you could do that. That is maybe an interesting way to sort of present it as opposed to just navigating menus. But the problem is that after 10 minutes, everybody would just fast travel everywhere and not do it anymore. It's a waste of effort.
I mean, I drive places because I like in Forza Horizon, I drive places. Like, I enjoy the speed traps and like all the little stuff that they put in there, the signs that you can blast through. And
that's just not that's not what this game is missing.
But one of the, like, for example, we just played the Crew Motor Fest, and they had really cool stuff in the open world. Like, you'd just like trigger impromptu like slalom races, impromptu races in the open world. Like, actually, that game did a good job with the open world stuff,
right?
Even more so than Horizon.
But that's not what the motorsport is. You know, that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to simulate real racing in real professional situations on these real locations. And I think
it just makes it so boring.
But the others weren't.
I mean, I thought they kind of were.
Not like this.
I mean, the driving model was... You're right, this is worse. But I thought the driving model was always good. It's just... I always thought his presentation was sterile. It was better than Gran Turismo, but that was a low bar to clear.
That's the nature of a driving sim. Yeah. That's just what it is.
It's just... I mean, it's just funny that you just have to accept that that's just the way it is.
We accept it. I mean, they know, like, you know, that's not what the people who are into this kind of thing want.
But do you think they want this?
Judging by the review scores. Most of the people I know who are not into this are not hardcore gearhead people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a hardcore gearhead either. I don't know how to do the fucking tuning thing.
I don't tweet. I don't touch it. I just hit the button.
I hit the button and let it on. Yeah, I've done that forever on these games. That's one of the reasons.
Who goes in and adjusts the camber on cars? I'm sure like a half of a %. I
know 4 people who would do that.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's more than I thought you'd know.
One of them's dead, but like I know 3 people.
That's still more than I thought.
Yeah. That would know. I mean, one of them, the guy who's dead, is the guy who in college, when Gran Turismo started coming out, I would invite him over to my dorm room and ask him to help me
complete all the license tests.
No, I'd ask him to help me get the car set up. I'm like, what do I need? Like, what does this mean? How do I want it higher or lower? And he'd be like, set that to this, set that to that, and it would fucking drive perfectly. Like, he knew exactly how to do that. There's people that love doing that, but also there's other games for people that are more into that, like My Summer Car, which is one of the most horrifyingly difficult things. I mean, the car mechanics simulators are no joke when you take all the assists off.
Yeah.
I mean, this is doing what it's trying to do in terms of like putting you on the track, but it's just like the presentationally. I don't understand where all the stuff from the other games went, especially because they put out a new Forza every 2 years for something like 12 years.
Yeah. And
then it takes 6 years to get this out, and it's missing basic. There's no car club in this. There's no social features here. Even, you know, it's one of the weirdest.
The multiplayer is one of the
weirdest things is the fact that the Drivatar names are off by default.
Oh, I didn't notice that actually.
Well, because usually you, especially in the other games and in the Horizon.
Oh, you mean above the cars?
Above the cars.
As they go around?
I mean, I recognize some of these cars. Like, I've raced against people on my friends list for years. I know that if there's a Batman car, I know who that is.
Right.
Also weird that like almost every one of my male friends, when you go to do the podium thing, they're all the female body in a purple racing suit of some kind. And so am I. I don't know what happened there.
Really?
We all just picked girls with purple racing suits.
Some of you guys, by the way, are going to see your names in this B-roll. Because if you're on my friends list on Xbox, like, every time you line up and there's like 24 competitors or whatever, it's all people from your friends list.
But for me, it's someone who does actually enjoy the racing and doesn't. I don't need an open world. But I do need some trappings. I need, it's silly, and I would do it differently. But like the cafe thing in Gran Turismo 7 is not a bad idea.
It's better than this.
Like putting faces on things is not a bad idea. Yeah. As opposed to the only character in this game is the woman who tells you last lap, bring it on home.
Yeah.
And it's like your manager, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know who the hell she is.
But there's
honestly.
no context for any of you. Like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? What am I at? Like, you don't even have a thing where it's like, even Horizon gives you the thing where it's like you can either focus on off-roading or, I mean, obviously I don't expect off-roading to be in this game, but like, set the event tracks up so like you want to be this kind of racer, do this. You want to be this kind of racer, follow this, and that'll give you different people you're working with. Like some kind of interactive thing on who's on the team. I mean, they even do that in some of the cutscenes between things. You're seeing like you're doing high fives and talking to the guys on the telemetry things. Like no one's there doing that and talking to you about. I mean, I don't need it to be like bros being bros like in Horizon or anything, but it feels like even if you make it a little sterile, it could still be sort of like you've got the tech guy telling you about how the car works now, and you got on this track you're gonna like advisors or something about like for this track you're gonna want to do this. It's just like kind of a random VO, and then you never hear from him again. It's just weird and like
it's just empty and like soulless.
Yeah,
it's the best way I can
I've
put
never
it.
described a Forza Motorsport like that before.
Yeah.
Like the fact when I realized you could not join or form a car club. I was like, that was one of the big things originally with Forza was like you could like group together with other people and like you all helped each other out and got bonuses for how many people raced. You didn't have to race together, but it was like it's just so weird.
It's all gone. I mean, you really only have like your career mode where there's 5 different tours that you play in, and each tour has like 5 or 6 races.
I think 6 and then a finale or something like that.
Yeah, there's like
5 and a finale.
Yeah, and then you have to for each one of those races you have to do 3 laps in practice before you can actually enter the race.
And then there's another final event set that you only get when you finish all 4 finales of the other ones or something like that.
Yep.
I'm nowhere near close because the fact that you got to do 3 practice laps every fucking race makes this stuff take forever.
It takes forever.
And you can skip it. I can't remember
exactly.
I haven't
figured out how to do that.
It's weird. You have to back out and go back in and pause, and then you can just skip practice. The problem is you get XP while you're practicing, and this does use the same sort of system Forza's used for a while, where you have driver XP, which is your overall character level, and then you have a level for the car, a specific car you're driving.
Yeah.
And the higher this is weirdly anti-sim to me, but you only use money in this to buy cars.
And you have to if you start a tour,
right?
Because you usually don't have a car that'll qualify.
Well,
for
usually
it.
I do because I have the car pass.
What does that mean?
That means I bought the VIP thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Because I
have to buy a car for every tour.
Because I realized, like, to play it early, I didn't have to. I did the Starfield thing. I didn't have to buy the game because I had Game Pass. I just had to buy the $30 VIP add-on.
Ah, gotcha.
Like people did with the premium thing for Starfield.
Right.
So I did that. So I have I get a new car like every other day in the mail. And like so usually I do have something that covers.
Well, let me tell you what it's like for people slumming it like
you have to like. Your level up points you get from leveling the car up are separate each to each car, and that's what you use to tune the performance and upgrade the car. So if you're not doing the practice, the game is assuming you're going to get those level ups from the XP you get from doing the practices, so you will be behind the curve in terms of performance against the grid when you're racing the actual races. And it's not that hard a game. It's actually probably the easiest
The
Forza
rub there
ever.
is that if you do the practice laps and you do improve your car, the game becomes a cakewalk. By the time you get to the end of the tour, I was lapping people.
But when I skipped practice, I couldn't keep up with any of them.
Really?
Because they literally have higher top speeds than me.
Interesting.
I couldn't compete.
If you do the practice laps, by the last race of a tour, I'm lapping them. Yeah, I'm literally lapping them, catching up with the back of the pack in a 5-lap race on like a 10-mile track.
I'm playing on Drivatar 7, which is about like, okay, I can get ahead. I can get to first place by like the 2nd or 3rd lap.
Yeah, even if you start at the way back. Because here's the other thing you can do to make this game. You can either adjust the Drivatar level, as Matt said, or you can choose the order where you start the race. You can put yourself all the way in 24th place so that you fight your way through all the cars, and then you earn more credits if you do it that way.
Yeah, although if you're in 24th place, you get the credits when you hit something like 5th or 6th.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Once you go down below 14, it doesn't expect you to get higher than a certain.
I didn't know that, actually.
So you get the bonus for that, and you don't get any more for getting higher than that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you're going to get first place every time, there's no reason to go below, I think, 14th.
Interesting. I did not know that.
It's an interesting system.
Yeah. But ultimately, the game is easy. Like, I really have struggled to have any pushback on this game because I'm doing the practice laps every time.
It gets harder as you go on, and like it's been a little more challenging as the drivatars have gotten better as more people have played longer. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is the drivatar AI in this. Usually, the drivatar stuff has been pretty solid in this series. Mm-hmm. One of the highlights, really, because they don't drive like computers. They fuck up. They do things.
They do make mistakes.
But like the first 2 turns on every race in this game is like a demolition derby. Like. That's not how racing works.
Did you see in the trailer it said win in the corners?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's actually accurate in this game because you can just go piling into the corners and just use them as bumpers, and you can like make up 10 places in one turn.
But the thing is, like, it's not even because you as a player are short-circuiting the AI. Like, the cars up in front of me are pit maneuvering each other.
Right.
It's like they are... And that doesn't... No matter how high you turn the drivatar level up, they don't get any safer.
Yeah.
And that's funny because there is a safety rating in the multiplayer, and if you don't drive like a professional, you'll get dumped into... you'll get dumped... if you want an S rank... If you don't touch other cars, you will get an S rank in safety and be matched with other S rank safety people.
Yeah.
If you're like me and carom off people to make the turn faster, you're going to get a C or something and get dumped in with a bunch of yahoos, which is fine, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's just usually that's not how the AI has functioned. I mean, you're the one being a dick in most of the other forces, but in this one, I've been rammed back and forth. And the problem is you get experience for every section based on how well you perform. If you touch another car, you get a 1 out of 10 by default. Even if you're not the one whose fault it is.
Yeah.
Like these stupid dickheads will ram into them. I'm like, no, I was right there. And you still get the penalty.
Yeah.
And
the other
that's
thing, too,
annoying.
is going off track, that's all busted. Like how whether they deduct points from you or not, there's no rhyme or reason to how that works. Whether you're going to get time deducted for going off track. I have completely cut a corner off and just went through the grass and ignored the corner and still didn't have any time deducted.
So I did look that up. Apparently that is supposedly based somewhat on the penalty guidelines for each track.
Oh, really?
I guess some tracks in real life are more lenient than others depending on what corner you're cutting or not.
Interesting.
Like the Indianapolis track, don't give a fuck.
It seemed like all the tracks they didn't care.
On the Indianapolis track, I accidentally ran. There's a little like the double S. There's a little S curve there. The first time on that track, I accidentally ran just through, because it's flat. Like most tracks, especially modern tracks, have larger demarcations and embankments. The Indianapolis 500 is flat most of the time.
I never realized that.
And so I accidentally drove over both of them, and it gave me a personal best for that section of track. Like, no shit, I drove through the curve. Like, what are you talking? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about actual real life professional racing to know if that's accurate or not. But I saw claims on Reddit that no, that's actually how you wouldn't get penalized for that on the Indy track, or this track in I can't remember the name. It's a track in Africa that's very, very strict about it.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because it just seems like I can just get away with murder. It doesn't seem like I ever get punished.
Well,
for
and look, usually the penalties don't fucking matter, and you're talking about a couple seconds at best. And I don't think I've ever finished less than 5 seconds ahead of the next second place car. So.
So there are.
It matters more in multiplayer, I'm sure, but I don't expect to come in anywhere in multiplayer because everybody online's way better than I am.
Yeah. There are 20 tracks in the game. Most of them are real. There's a couple that are fake ones. There are 500 cars. 500 cars in this game. That is insane. It takes 20 minutes just to scroll through all the cars. But here's the thing, Matt. Sometimes the cars look great. This green car looks great. That other, crazy, cinematic thing that they do before each tour, cars look great.
Well, sort of.
But then you go to the track. And the paint jobs on these, there's something wrong. It's if you look at the wheel wells on the cars, the paint or the wraps get pixelated around the wheel wells.
Some of a lot of the some of that's custom stuff. So I've seen a lot of custom liveries from the user made stuff, and they're just not high enough res. And I don't know where those are coming from. But I've seen Pennzoil stickers that you can't even read Pennzoil.
Yeah.
And that is people making basically making their own liveries that are too low. And I don't know how people do that. Like, I've never made liveries that involve like actual logos and things. Like, I don't know if you recreate those pixel by pixel or if there's a way to scan them in or whatever. I don't know how any of that works.
I don't either.
But I've seen some that look great, and I've seen some that are maybe, I don't know, like, did you import that from Forza 5 or something? Because like that does not look like a modern day custom skin here. The actual default stuff looks fine. Although I think the cutscene before the events, it betrays that they don't quite have this game graphically up to performance speed in a lot of ways. Like,
Texture Glitch is asking, like, how are there 500 cars? I've seen like 20. And he brings up a good point. So when you start a new tour, you choose your car. Like, they give you 3 or 2 that you can choose from to buy. And as somebody who did not get the collector's version or whatever, any money that I earn in that last tour, I need every penny of it to afford a car for the next one.
I think I also got like 300,000 bonus money.
Oh, wow.
For
that changes everything.
Yeah, well,
that changes everything.
The VIP pass in the Forza games, always worth it.
Yeah.
Always worth it. But just because you have a car, you almost always have a car to just do whatever you want to do with.
Yep. But to his point, like, he's right. Like, I've played this game for, like, I don't know, probably 15, 16 hours, and I own, like, 6 cars. Like, because it's so slow. And again, each tour you pick a car and you stick with it through the whole tour. Like, you don't change cars each race. Now you can upgrade them between races. And again, I just choose like the auto upgrade or whatever. And by the time I get to the last race, I'm just lapping people. And my car is so much faster than everybody else's. But to his point, he's right. There's 500 cars, but like, where do you get to use them? Like, you have to play this game for like the rest of your life to get to all those cars.
Well, you can buy whatever you think is the best. That's the other thing, is like, you used to be awarded cars a lot. I mean, Horizon does it more, but you used to be awarded cars for winning things or achieving certain things or whatever, and that's kind of
you
gone.
Really don't. In this.
It's weird. Even Gran Turismo 7's more generous than that.
It is. It's really stingy with the cars.
Like, I don't expect to get wheel spins or anything like in Horizon, but it's just like I felt like you were getting showered with stuff a little more in the previous games. It's been a while. Maybe I need to go back and refresh, but like, I just never. This game feels stingy with everything.
It's true. The other thing too is that, like, once you finish a tour with that one car and it's all buffed up, like, you'll never go back to it because the next tour is themed. It's like a muscle car.
Yeah, because none of the other tours is not. I mean, it's not like you can go back and bring back one of your superstar cars.
Yeah,
because odds are you're maybe going to get one more series that car might qualify for. Maybe 1 or 2 of them.
Yep.
But it's like, I'm driving a Mercedes. I drove my Mercedes in one of the German tour things, and I ended up really liking that car. And I haven't gotten to use. I mean, I could go in a free play like this to just race a thing, and you get XP for that. But it's like, what's the point? You're not. It doesn't feel like you're making any progress.
Yeah. One thing I do like about it though is how it's built like segment by segment of the track. So sometimes, like, you take a corner poorly or whatever, you fly off the road and you have like a horrible segment. That's okay, because you get to the next like segment and you can nail it, and you get bonus rewards for each segment in the race, instead of like just getting rewards for the overall performance throughout the entire race. Yeah, which I think is cool.
Right. I mean, they've done that for the last 2.
Yeah.
And Horizon started doing that too. So it's
a little bit.
And I think part of the reason that came about is because it makes a lot more sense with the rewind feature.
Yeah.
If you rewind, you no longer get points for that section unless you rewind before you start the section.
Yeah.
But like, it breaks it up so that like you don't feel so bad having to redo something, because you're at least going to get that next section's XP.
Yep.
And they do, the one nice thing about the practice thing, I just think it should be optional, is that they do time you on kind of key characteristic areas of the track, like named corners, important stuff. And like, you know that if you get those right, you're going to do better on that race. And that is actually, I mean, you don't really need that for doing fighting the AI, but it is actually pretty darn good practice for multiplayer.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that cannot manage the carousel properly, and if you can, you're going to get ahead.
Speaking of multiplayer, the way that they do it is goofy and weird. Like, you have to show up at predetermined times, and you have to join the race way before it's supposed to actually happen, because you have to do like just like in the single player, you have to do qualifying races before you can participate in the multiplayer.
Absolutely bizarre.
Just having to like schedule time to do multiplayer, that's crazy. Like you can't just jump into a race with 24 other players online in this. Like I just want to do one race on a track.
Absolutely make that a mode for the people that really want to take it seriously, but why can't you just race a race?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's bizarre.
What the hell were they doing for 6 years on this game, Matt?
I don't know.
What the hell happened?
And like, I have a lot of graphical issues with it.
Me too. The game doesn't look good. Like,
and I'm playing on my PC.
It's like washed out and like all gray. And
it doesn't have HDR.
Is that? Oh, I didn't realize that. You can tell.
There's no HDR option in my PC.
Now that I think about it, I don't see it pop up on my TV.
I think it looks very washed out. If you compare it to GT7, it doesn't pop the same way.
No.
Even just the general landscape, even like that, just looks kind of gray.
Look at all the gray.
And I don't mean just look at the gray because the road is gray.
Right.
I mean, there's no vibrancy to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Even the paint jobs on the cars, like if you compare that to GT7, and there's some shine there, but if you look at the same car with the same factory paint job on GT7, that thing pops.
It comes alive.
And it's just, and part of it's because GT7 has HDR.
Yeah.
And I have not been able. Scorpio's Finest says HDR is on the Series X, but there's a bug with it.
Oh.
I'm playing on PC with everything maxed out, everything to ultra, 120 frames a second. I tried. I think with everything maxed out and DLSS on, it runs at like 84.
Yeah.
And I capped it at 60 because the variability made it weird. It looked weird. But like, and so it runs fine that way, but like in the shots where like the big thing in front of the screens before the events, the reflections are so jagged. Like it exposes flaws in it weirdly. And the biggest thing was, so I did turn on. It has the power to turn on the rearview mirror. You know, I like having that.
Except the cars look like they're an N64 game in the rear view.
They don't look super. They don't look super bad on PC, but they are low detail models compared to what you're looking at.
Where I can show it
but
to
the weirdest
people.
thing with the rear view mirror is because I do like the weather effects in this game a lot. And at one point I was doing a race in fog, and the fog got thicker and thicker as the race went on, and that was really cool. Like you're driving through and it parts and it's like looks neat, but they do not apply the fog effects to the rearview mirror on the cars or the spectators.
Wow.
So in the rearview mirror, you've got all this fog and you're seeing like the road sort of vanish into the fog, but all the cars are perfectly clear, low-res models of the cars wiggling back and forth in the fog. And I'm like, why? How?
But you can see it right there.
How did that happen?
Look in the rear view right there and look at the cars in the rear view. They're completely pixelated. They're so low res.
Yeah, that does not look like that on the PC.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
Look at those cars. They literally look like an N64
I mean,
game.
rearview mirrors are hard.
They are, because you have to render it all over again.
Yeah,
and there's a side mirror, too, by the way, on the left there.
Yeah, even on PC, there's an option to remove the mirrors.
Oh, really?
Like completely remove them to improve performance.
I can see that. But look at the cars there in that rearview mirror.
They almost look backwards. That's very funny.
Again, Matt, where did the 6 years go working on this game?
I don't know. Especially like after the previous one, which was like sort of the pristine launch darling of the Xbox One, if you even want to call anything that for the Xbox One. But,
I mean, I tend to agree with you. Maybe this game was rebooted at some point, and they really only spent a couple years on it instead of 6.
I see, because I don't know anything about game development on a nitty-gritty scale or anything like that, but to me, this game feels rushed.
It does. And how can that be?
Exactly, yeah. Because I think there must have been rebooting or corporate meddling or both, or I mean, like at this point, at a certain point, this was the only like graphical showcase game they had in the pipeline. I'm sure that Microsoft probably tried to, it wouldn't surprise me if Microsoft micromanaged this thing to hell and back.
It's possible. We've heard stories already, so
yeah. And this is what you get when you do that. If you don't let these, as though you. I mean, that's some short-sightedness that is really would be disappointing if true. Like, it's just like, if you don't think Turn 10 knows their business on this stuff, you're out of your mind. Like, they've turned in a banger every 2 years without fail from Forza 1 to Forza 7.
Yeah.
And you start getting as though the problem with the Xbox brand was that Forza Motorsport wasn't good.
Yeah.
It's
and to be fair, like the driving in this is really good.
Yeah.
Like the feeling, the physics of the cars. Like, as you mentioned, like going uphill, your cars decelerate really realistically.
Yeah, and you can rely on it. You don't need to ride the brake if you have if you have slope uphill.
That part's great.
It's very well done.
It lacks any sort of personality or style. There's none. There's not even a theme. It's like there's nothing.
No, it's like the opposite of that thing where we say it's like, oh, everything's cool, but the moment-to-moment gameplay just doesn't work or doesn't grab you.
Yeah.
The moment-to-moment gameplay in this is great.
Yeah.
But there's nothing outside of it.
Yeah. And
I've never said that about a Forza before.
I know. I also feel like there's like very little motivation to actually improve in the game unless you just want to unlock more parts that most players honestly will never even use.
For a specific car.
Yeah.
That I guess if you want to use it in multiplayer, like, I don't know where I'm going with any of
Exactly. What's my motivation? What's my motivation? To keep playing. Like, I struggle to find it.
And like, if I finish those events that are like in that initial, is that it?
Yeah.
Is that all that's there?
That's
it doesn't
the
unlock
5
a whole
tours.
No other like world of motorsport or anything. Well, you better have some fucking DLC in the pipeline for this thing.
Well, I mean, there's going to be.
Sure, but like, I don't mean just cars. I mean, they need a career mode in this thing.
Yeah.
It feels like something that would be on the PS2.
It's like it has all these crazy parts and these upgrade and tweaking the systems to tweak the car and the performance, but I never use it. And I really don't think the vast majority of people who play these games use it either.
I mean, I think if they did, you wouldn't have the auto-tune option.
Right.
You know, like,
which is all I do. I just hit X and let the game do it.
I would imagine that's what most people... Because, look, being a driving sim fan doesn't mean that you know how all that works.
Right. Doesn't mean you're a mechanic, basically. So... I mean,
maybe you know one or two things you prefer,
Yeah.
but I would be surprised if, you know, like, also because like it does fine.
Yeah.
Like the auto tune things.
It does. Yeah.
I'm sure even the people, even a lot of the outside of the hardcore gearheads, I'm sure you do the auto tune thing, and then you go in and tweak whatever you think you'd rather have, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I'll just say this: I'm really glad that I got this on Game Pass instead of paying like $70 for it. I would be really pissed if I paid $70 for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret the VIP thing because
$30. $30 is what I would pay for this game.
Yeah,
honestly, like,
it made life easier.
Yeah.
But like, I don't see the point of going back to it.
Yeah. Black Sierra says the driving wheel support isn't very good. Thank you for adding that because neither one of us played it with a wheel.
Somebody asked about damage. There is damage in the game if you set the difficulty high enough.
You can choose whether it's cosmetic or it actually
affects the performance. Yeah. That'll, if you want to be more difficult,
which is nice. Rock and Roll 458.
It's a full-featured simulation in terms of the car on the track. Like, it's just not a very good presentation of anything else.
I just didn't find it to be very fun.
I mean, you don't even have the thing where it's like you can go in and look at the car and like some like overly serious narrator will tell you facts about it. It's like it's all the window dressing is gone, and it's that kind of made Forza what it was.
Yeah, it's just so simple. There's just nothing there. Rock and Roll 458 asks, the two big releases for Xbox this year have been Starfield and Forza. Both aren't bad by any means. I'm enjoying Starfield, but they seem rather half-baked and a mixed bag. Do you view this as concerning for Xbox going forward?
No.
I think we're just seeing desperate Xbox right now, honestly. I think it's just like we need to get games out in the pipeline. People have been waiting patiently for way too long.
Yeah, because Starfield's fine. Starfield sold 10 million goddamn copies. It's not, no one cares. Like,
and the bugs in that, I really didn't suffer a lot of bugs.
Starfield, like all the Bethesda, you know, that's the thing is you can't ever forget that nobody does what Bethesda does. There is no equivalent of Skyrim. There is no equivalent. There is no competition for that. Yeah. There is competition for this.
Oh, yeah. So you have the other analog to compare it to.
I mean, granted, you need to have the other system to do that because I'm comparing it to GT. I don't know if there's, but you know, there's PC games that do this. You know, would you rather play this or Grid?
Yeah,
probably Grid 4.
Probably, yeah. I hate to admit that, but that's
Grid 4 has a little bit of Wessonality to it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I do feel like maybe Game Pass, maybe Microsoft looks at it like, well, most people aren't going to pay full price for this, so maybe that gives them a little bit of a license to put stuff out before it really wants to.
And there's an element of it, you need this thing out, like when it, you know, to fill this gap in the schedule.
It's been 6 years!
Right, but if you need this out to fill that gap in the schedule and you don't want to wait any longer, like, it's fine.
This is one of those, crap or get off the pot situations, I feel like, with Microsoft. They're like, look, man, we gave you 6 years to make this game, like, get the game out.
Well, also because there's probably a Horizon coming next year.
Right.
So...
And how are those games so amazing? They come out every 2 or 3 years, and we get this after 6 years.
Well, I think different developers and, frankly, completely different approaches.
Yeah.
Like Forza Horizon has so much more freedom in what they're going to do.
It's just fun, ultimately.
Yeah. And Forza, but that means that Forza Motorsport, you have to figure out a way to present it in a more compelling way. And to their credit, Polyphony has been working on that for like 3 games now, and between Sport and 7 have more or less figured it out for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's weird that the series that had figured it out from day 1 dropped the ball on day 8.
Yeah. It's really bizarre.
And that was a long day.
Yep. And Silk Snake asks, another Xbox letdown. Who's to blame? Who is to blame?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess you could blame Phil Spencer, but...
All I can tell you is Hellblade 2 better be a fucking
banger.
Rip snorting.
Erebus Jones asks, who, by the way, you probably saw your name in the B-roll over and over again. You were definitely one of the drivatars in my game. Do you think Forza is more of a platform and some of this stuff will be addressed over time, like the stinginess? I mean, I think it has to address some of this stuff.
I don't see how you don't.
I mean, it's pretty unanimous across all the reviews, including us, that the game needs to give up the cars a lot more easily than it does. Again, as somebody who didn't pay extra money, like, I understand where chat's coming from, man. Like, you do not get cars. And again, you finish a tour, and if you do all the 3 practice laps and then do the race and finish first pretty much in all those races, you still barely have enough money to buy the car that will qualify for the next tour.
And that's going to get even more difficult as you move forward into the higher level stuff.
And then you need the car that costs $250,000.
Right, they're going to want you to have an S-Class.
Yep. So,
meanwhile, I have like 3 of those already.
This is disappointing. Again, this is one of the most disappointing games of the year for me so far in 2023. And we're starting to get towards the end of it here, so it's definitely up there. Somebody mentioned our turkey awards earlier for Thanksgiving time, and we'll see if it ends up being in there, but it's definitely in the running.
There's a lot of choices for that.
There are, yeah. But anyway, there you go. That's Forza Motorsport 2023. To Erebus Jones' point, I mean, it's going to stick around for the next, I don't know about 6 years, but the next few.
Just 2 years at least.
Yeah. So my guess is it does improve over time. There's like an editorial from The Escapist that we curated the SIFTD this week, and the whole thesis of it was like, it's not worth it to buy games at launch anymore. Like, and the editor was like, every game I buy at launch, it's a disaster, and then like 6 months later, it's what I thought I was paying for. And so why do I suffer being the beta tester through these games at launch instead of just waiting 6 months to buy them cheaper and to get them when they play better and all the DLCs there? Like,
because you work in Game Press, that's why.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah. So
like that. That's
the job.
That's fine advice, but you have to do it when it comes out. Otherwise, the business goes away.
Yeah, that's the gig. So there you go. That's Forza Motorsport 2023. I mean, that's a thumbs down from me. How about you?
That's more of a thumb sideways. Like, it's, if you just want to drive cars, it's great.
Yeah.
But like, if you want more than that, I mean, it's
go somewhere else.
Basically, it reminds me of the old Gran Turismos where it was just like a white menu and you can go drive a car.
You're right. And that's pretty much it.
And I expect more from that.
I think my biggest disappointment...
More than that from Forza.
My biggest disappointment, I think, is the multiplayer. Because that's something that, like, you can play forever. Like, the fact that there's no quick multiplayer races...
I think it's weird they don't let you go do something else.
Right.
While you're
waiting for the race to start.
Yeah.
So anyway, 1 thumbs down, 1 in the middle from Matt from Forza Motorsport 2023. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that, sadly, I have to admit, I did not play at all. I did not even play, like, the first hour for B-roll in this case. I didn't have time because I played something else we're going to talk about in a minute. Plus, they were very good about putting out B-roll. The developers were good about putting out B-roll of the game throughout the course of its development. And that game is called Lords of the Fallen. Not to be confused with Lords of the Fallen that released in 2013. Mm-hmm. Originally, when they announced this, it had a different name. It was called, like, Lord of the Fallen.
It's called The Lords of the Fallen.
The Lords or something like that. And then they just decided, you know what? Nope, we're just going to...
Fuck it. No one remembers that piece of shit. So.
And they went back and just called it Lords of the Fallen. So don't be confused. This is an entirely new and different game, though a sequel to the one from... Was it 2013?
2013, 2014.
Roughly around there. Yeah. So this game is like 10 years in the making, even more than Forza Motorsport.
No, they didn't start until much more recently, because the idea that game would get a sequel was kind of ridiculous for a long time.
Yeah, and here we are.
I think that first one sold a lot of units on deep discount. I think that's what happened.
Later on at like 20, 30, 40 bucks.
Oh,
stuff
I'm like
that.
5, 10.
Oh,
like that game was they were practically giving that thing away.
I never played the original either.
It wasn't good.
Yeah. It wasn't good at all?
No.
Okay.
It was one of the first Souls clones, and
they hadn't figured it out yet.
No.
Well, Lords of the Fallen is also a Dark Souls clone, a Souls-like, as the kids like to call them. It is an action RPG, a very challenging action RPG. It does seem like it is really challenging based upon the chatter that I've seen online since people started playing it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's challenging. They did buff up the first couple bosses a bit more because I guess people were complaining they were too easy.
Oh wow!
I've
never heard that before from a Souls-like.
You hear it all the time from the Souls fans. It's
like a badge of honor thing to say this is too easy.
Which is fun. I mean, they're just. I mean, look, they're all Souls bosses are just fucking pattern memorization. They're all pretty easy when you come down to that. But like,
until you start playing the ones that like do the feints, where they act like they're gonna strike and then don't, or they pause like before they.
Well, that's what they did to one of the early bosses, where they sort of made her do that a little more.
I mean, they did the Elden Ring bosses did that a lot.
Mix her stuff up more.
Yeah.
So you are. I don't want to shock you, but you are a nameless warrior in a dark fantasy world that has fallen into ruin and is under assault by the forces of evil, and you have a magic thing that lets you come back to life repeatedly, except without the currency to upgrade yourself, and you have to go fight through the legions of evil to save the world, or not save, I don't know.
Now this is the big hook, right? That there's two realities.
The big hook is the umbral thing, yeah. So the little lantern they have there is it's the thing that brings you back to life, but it is also your conduit to the umbral world. So that is the afterlife, or the land of the dead, basically, which is kind of like Soul Reaver. There's a shadow world everywhere in the game. And you can go into it.
Or like the medium. It's more like the medium, because it's like what they just showed there with that like wall was in one world there were bars there, and then you use the lamp, and then the bars disappear, and you can walk through it.
Well, I kept thinking of Soul Reaver because that's how Soul Reaver works.
Yeah.
You have more freedom in how you get in and out of the world in this one. Well, not really. It's the same, more or less. You can hold up the lantern, and it will let you treat whatever's in front of you as though it's the umbral world. So you saw there, like, there was bars there, and you held it up, and there's no bars in the umbral world, so you can just walk through it.
Yep.
This is also true of things like bridges. That is riskier, because if something attacks you while you're on the bridge holding the lantern, you put the lantern down, the bridge goes away.
It disappears. Oh, I didn't realize
because it's only while the lantern is illuminated.
Oh, wow.
Right? There's little things like that. There's enemies. So here you'll see, like, there's little things you can pull on that will, like, alter stuff or give you an item, or pull, like, down bridges, or open
you have like
paths.
a hook shot or something.
Yeah, it's a soul rip, I think, something like that. You can also do that to enemies, which will pull their souls out briefly and stun them, so you can hit them for more damage.
Well, so it pulls the soul out of their body, and then you attack the soul and not them, right?
You can attack their body.
That's what I saw in the B-roll.
You attack their body. It does more damage that way. There's other things you can do. You can upgrade the lantern later to mess with their soul. Like, there's things you can do with that.
Okay.
And then you have to recharge it by sucking out, like, little blisters. And because, like, there's you see the little circular dot under the life bars up there? Mm-hmm. That indicates whether you have the power in the lantern to do the rip.
Okay.
And right now he does not, because he used it.
There's a lot of HUD in this game. Like, what's the thing in the top right? The
eyeball?
Yeah.
That is the awareness of the forces of evil of your presence in the umbral. And as it gets bigger, they'll send more monsters after you. And eventually, like, these, like, little zombies will start spawning everywhere. And if it gets too high and turns red, like, this like red Grim Reaper monster comes after you that you are not going to beat. And you have to find a way to get out of the umbral and back into the living world.
Sounds kind of interesting.
It's boring.
Really?
I actually find it tedious.
Wow, interesting. I really thought it sounded cool.
Well, the problem is, like, it's not switching so much as just, like, having to remember that, like, oh, if I can't get through here, maybe I can look at this, and then I got to go back in the umbral world, and like holding the lantern basically stops you. Like, and walking with it's really slow, and it's just like it's a cool idea, but in practice it just feels like you just needed a hook that made you different from Dark Souls, and it's not interesting enough to me to make me want to like stop the whole game and do that. The thing that's interesting, so you can actually switch into the Umbral World whenever you want. You just have to find either specific way, only specific ways you can come back. You can either stop at the vestiges, which are the equivalent of a bonfire, or you can find these little like disembodied head things that let you, for one shot, jump back into the living world. The main gameplay mechanic that people are gonna probably like the best out of it is what it means is the Umbral World is basically the land of the dead. Mm-hmm. If you get killed, you don't die. You get thrown into the Umbral World.
They send you to the Umbral World. And
you can keep fighting.
And can you come back to the real world if you fight well enough?
You can, if you can survive and find a place to jump back to. If you're in a boss fight, no.
Okay.
The difference in the Umbral World is when you jump back to the Umbral World, if you hit the Umbral World, it halves your life. And you have like gray in the life bar. The gray in the life bar, that also happens when you block attacks. Mm-hmm. You get that life back by hitting enemies.
Okay.
Bloodborne style.
Yep.
If you get hit, you lose all your gray life.
Oh.
So that's your balance on that. So you go to the Umbral World and you lose half your life, but you can get all that life back by hitting enemies.
Okay.
As long as you don't get hit in the meantime. So that's sort of the balance on that.
All right.
And that's sort of so the Umbral World is sort of more where like the puzzles, it's a little more puzzly. Probably more puzzly than most Dark Souls stuff is. And it's how you kind of open new ways. Like very early on, one of the things they teach you with it is like you get to this area where there's not really anywhere else for you to go except this thing up top, and you can't get there because there's like a swamp, and if you walk too far into the water, you die.
Okay.
But in the Umbral World, there's no water. So you switch to the Umbral World and walk through freely. You have to fight monsters and stuff down there because there's, you know, do you
have to hold the lamp the whole time while you're fighting?
No, if you can switch into the world.
Okay.
So you hold the lamp up and then hold the X button on the Xbox controller,
swap for good,
and you fully transition, lose half your life, and do the thing.
Gotcha.
But then you have to find a way back to the living world eventually. So then you can go up through there and come back up, and you get back up there, and now you see, oh, there's a thing I could knock over to create a shortcut, so I wouldn't have to go through the water. I could just walk from the last checkpoint over to here where I need to go. But you can't interact with the real world really in the land of the dead, so you have to fight your way through things to find a thing to bring yourself back to life, and then go back and kick the board over, and now you can cross that bridge and get to the boss.
I see.
So that's sort of where the Umbral World comes in that sense. It's also
cool.
It's also a bit of a punishment if you die, because if you're being chased by more monsters, you lose half your life, etc. So, but it does sort of function as it feels good especially if you're a Souls vet. It feels good that like you didn't actually die.
Yeah.
You get another chance.
Right.
Usually that's
mulligan.
Usually if you're already gonna die, it's not going to help you that much.
Yeah.
This is also an interesting mechanic. This is there's called these. I think they're called vestige seeds. If you find a little patch of flowers here, you can pull up your lantern and plant one of these seeds, and it creates a bonfire.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
The trick is that every time you plant one, the previous one vanishes.
Oh.
So a lot of times you'll find those right outside boss fights. So basically,
it's like a temporary
checkpoint,
yeah.
So you don't have to run all the way back.
Right.
The problem is, and I haven't experienced this personally because I haven't finished. I've only played like 10 hours of this. I haven't remotely finished the game. But New Game Plus, there are no bonfires.
Oh, geez.
There are no vestiges with the equivalent of bonfires. They're all crumbled as part of the story. Mm-hmm. There's only those seeds. And you get 2 seeds every time you beat a boss, so it's not like you're running out of seeds. But the problem is, the last one still vanishes.
Oh.
And that's how you fast travel, which means in New Game Plus, you cannot fast travel.
Oh, wow. Screw that.
Fuck you.
Yeah, screw that, man. That's no fun.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the question. Is this game fun? It sounds like you're annoyed by it.
I don't like it very much.
I like the art.
The art is gorgeous. It looks great. It's Unreal 5. There's a lot of reviews like, oh, it's the first game that looks like the Unreal 5 demos. No, it doesn't. It's not that good.
Yeah, it doesn't look that good.
But, like, it is very good. The design is imaginative. Switching between the worlds is it has that sort of no loading feel where you're like, oh, yeah, you couldn't have done this before. But they are doing it on the Xbox Series S, so what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
It's just a settings thing. But it does have a next gen feel to it. It looks good. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
And
this is next gen only, by the way. This is PlayStation 5, Xbox Series only.
And there is a I will say this. So I've been playing it on PC. It was a mess at launch. As a matter of fact, it hard crashed after I created my character.
Wow.
I created my
That's a first.
So you create your character, and then you get a little cutscene where that guy in the hat from the beginning of the B-roll talks to you, and then you spawn in this little pond, and you can walk out. That's the beginning of the game. It crashed as the camera was panning down to show me in the pond. So I had to, and it had a built-in crash reporter with a very full-featured crash reporter. So I'm like, oh, you knew this was going to happen. And I load it back up, and I reload my save, and my character that I have just created is trapped inside of a root and can't move. So I had to delete her and do it again. So that was my first introduction to that. Now to be fair, and it has hard crashed several times.
Really?
Performance is good. Like, it performs. I have everything ultra maxed out, and it runs quite well.
That's good.
Performance-wise, it just crashes a fair amount, which is a problem for a game where you can't save whenever you want to.
Oh my god, that's like a death knell.
So I've lost some progress here and there, but it hasn't been super bad. The checkpointing is actually not bad. Even it does like autosave, like seems to autosave some. Like I've died, or I've not died. I've hard crashed and come back, and some items I picked up are still there. Mm-hmm. So clearly it's saving your inventory or something. I don't know what's going on there. There are people saying that they've lost 20, 30 hour long saves.
There was the attacking the soul mechanic right there.
Yeah, that's a lantern. He's using some kind of inferno magic for that. I use normal like swords and stuff, which I don't have not, to my experience, worked on the souls. So I think
here's the point we're talking about. So watch, he grabs a soul, pulls it out, and then you attack the soul.
Yeah, so he's using magically imbued blades there, and I don't think that actually did anything.
Really?
I didn't see the life bar drop anyway.
Huh. This is cool though, man. Like,
it's cool, but walk very slowly across that for 5 minutes and see how cool you think it is at the end of that.
I can see
this is fine. I mean, that was that.
Yeah.
The other thing.
You also use it to like pull platforms and
like I said, you use it to interact with the environment, and that will go away if you switch back to the living world and come back. Like, none of that's permanent.
Yeah.
There's weird thing. The combat in this is very weird to me. To the point that I started messing with it, and I started looking up like people who were like sort of experimenting with it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is rather poorly explained, and some like it's. Okay, so for instance, like standard Dark Souls style, there's weak attack and strong attack, right? Mm-hmm. On the shoulder the shoulder buttons. Both of those attacks do the exact same amount of damage.
Why?
Nobody knows. The heavy attack is chargeable, so if you charge the heavy attack, it does do more damage.
But if you just tap it, it's the same.
It's the same, but it takes longer. So what? Why wouldn't it do a little more damage if you tap it, and then a lot more damage if you hold it? Nobody knows.
Yeah, that should be that way.
One of the things. So, and this is just sort of me as a Souls player. I don't always lock on when I'm fighting things. Sometimes if I'm fighting more than one enemy, and I know that I'm going to get surrounded, and there's a lot of multiple. You're fighting 6, 7, 8, 9 guys sometimes in this game. It's probably the most enemies I've ever fought at once in a Souls-alike.
And here's cooperative play.
And if you're, and I know which way to turn my guy, and I'm pretty good at that. The way the swings work in this game short circuit that completely. And it even does it when you're locked on, because there's a weird thing where a bunch of the weapons you use as you do longer combos, you slide around the enemy. And the combo still stays locked on, but you pass the guy. And I've missed the fourth hit of my combo sometimes because he slid around the character and was no longer able to rotate fast enough to keep the lock on and hit them again. Which I've never had in one of these. It feels really slippery in that regard. And the other thing is, and this is just something you got to get used to, but early on it's different, and I had some problems with it. This game has the longest recovery frames after an attack of any Souls-like I have ever played. Like, I am...
Explain to people what you mean by that.
I mean, like, so, and this is a fighting game term to some degree, but, like, when you do an attack in a game, especially fighting games, but also action and adventure, there's what's called startup frame, hitboxes, and recovery frame. So the animation when you're starting up to do the hit, that's a startup frame. You're not... If you get hit when that's happening, you're going to get knocked out of your attack. You're not doing any damage yet. Mm-hmm. If you're in your hitbox section of the attack, now the sword is active. If it touches the enemy's hitbox, you're going to do damage. The attack is successful. After that part's done, you have what are called recovery frames, where there's a little bit of animation where your character sort of goes back into neutral position out of the attack, and in that period of time, you cannot do another attack, you cannot do another move, you are vulnerable briefly. Now, ideally, you have hit the enemy, and they do not have time to recover from their stun frames to go after you and still damage you during your recovery frames. That's called an attack is either plus or negative. That's how many frames advantage you have after you hit something. So if an attack is a +2, that means that you have that they have 2 extra frames of damage recovery than you have attack recovery. So they will never be able to hit you back.
Right.
If it's negative
by the numbers, they won't be able to.
If it's negative on block, you are vulnerable to a counterattack.
Yep.
They can recover before you do. The recovery frames on the attacks in this game take forever. Like, even to just because Dark Souls generally does a thing where, like, a lot of the From games do a thing where even if you're in recovery, a lot of times you can sort of cheese it by dodge rolling out of it.
Yep.
Not present in this.
Oh, geez.
That was the biggest adjustment, was realizing how long it took to recover from even successful attacks.
It seems like a lot of people who like this subgenre have said this game is challenging. It's hard.
That's one of the reasons it's hard, and you're either going to be able to deal with that or not. Now, I've played enough fighting games and adjusted it enough different fighting game, like designed systems that it wasn't that big of a change, but like it's hard to get past 10 years of fucking muscle memory. Like I still screw it up sometimes, especially during boss fights. The other thing that I think is interesting, so you see there he's dual wielding. Dual wielding, you drop about 15% of your attack damage. That's a trap. You don't want to get caught by that thing.
Definitely not.
So you don't want to get caught. But it kind of evens out. The thing that is weird to me about this game is you're doing about the same amount of damage no matter what your weapon you're using or how you're using it. Dual-handed, sword and board. It's all about the same. It doesn't really matter.
Well, that sucks.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
The only thing that really matters is two-handing things. Like where you hit the Y button and like you two-hand. Yeah. That does a pretty appreciable bonus in damage, except with short sword. It's usually about, I think, 15% bonus.
But your attacks are also slower.
They are slower, but you do about 15% more damage. Unless you're using a short sword, in which you do like 35% more damage, which I think has to be a mistake.
Yeah, that might be a glitch.
The other thing that's interesting is, so I said that like when you block something, either with and by the way, shields are useless in this game. It's better to just use your weapon. There's no extra block power from a shield. It resists elemental stuff, but you can use your weapon just fine for it.
Okay.
Until like later in the game, I think there's shields that do better, but like early on, all shields are roughly the same, and you don't really block any extra damage versus just blocking with a weapon. Yeah. So if you want to run through in two-hand or dual wield, you're really not losing anything, which is not common in these. Usually there's a significant disadvantage until you've leveled up more. Not true here. Interesting choice.
Yeah.
But the other interesting choice, which I actually like a lot, is, like I said, when you block something, you take that gray health, right? Like the gray health, you can hit someone to get it back. If you get hit again, you lose it.
Yeah.
Get this. And as someone who's played enough of these games, I think you'll understand what the significance of this. If you block, your life can get taken down to make it full gray. Mm-hmm. You cannot be killed. You don't die. I could have 1 hit point left. If I block effectively, I don't die.
Wow.
But if I don't get that health back by hitting, obviously I'm going to die.
Right. Yeah.
But you will never be killed while blocking that way. Unlike Dark Souls, where it can
you still take damage,
unless you're using a perfect shield.
Right. Yeah.
So that is fascinating to me. You can stand there and
just keep blocking.
Tank bosses, and they'll take all your life away, but you won't die. And if you can get enough hits in, you get about 30 of your life back, and you're doing all right.
Keep going.
Like, that is a difference.
I like that.
That's a difference that I thought was significant. And I was like, ooh, that changes my strategy for some of this stuff. I liked that.
Mellow Pintor says, it will take an exceptional Souls game for me to get me to try another one after Elden Ring. I do wonder how many people there are like that out there right now.
That is the crux of this, is when it comes down to it, like all the good and the bad, I'm bored playing this game.
Yeah.
And it's not because the game is bad, it's because I personally cannot go back to the Souls format after Elden Ring.
Right.
Elden Ring changed the game, and going back to this feels so primitive. And like the thing where it's like, well, you just have to get through this part. And if you're having trouble getting through this part, you got to throw yourself at it over and over again. And the fact that Elden Ring let me just go fuck off and do whatever I wanted and come back to it later, I'm sorry, that's what I need now.
I mean, it changed everything for me, too.
Changes everything.
I mean, I played way more Elden Ring than any other Souls-like by a mile.
So that is the difficulty here. The other thing, of course, is the technical problems. I will say this. They have already patched the game 3 times.
Wow.
They are very actively paying attention to crash. Like the crash that happened when I created my character, that's gone.
Great.
They fixed that in the first patch.
That's good to hear, especially on PC.
Like, they have put out messages that are like, we are very actively monitoring all the crash reports. Send in the crash reports. Put in all your comments. Attach the files. We are fixing this stuff as it comes in. We have fixed this many crashes because you guys have given us feedback, not purely because you guys are going to. So I will say this: the devs on this are on it.
That's
like
good.
They are rebalancing stuff as people complain about it or run into problems with it. They are fixing crashes as they're reported in within days. Like they are doing everything they can to make this game, responsive to the community and functional and get it all patched out. It's like like I said, that crash reporter on day one was super detailed. They knew this was coming, and they were ready for it. And I got to give them huge props for that.
This game looks like a cross between. Visually, a cross between Bloodborne and Elden Ring.
Yeah,
like right in the middle of the two games, it feels like.
Yeah, there's a lot of tendrils, which gives it a Bloodborne feel. I don't think it doesn't remind me of Bloodborne the same amount as Lies of P.
Yeah,
it plays
gameplay wise.
It plays way more like a standard Souls game.
Yeah,
just with like a little differences. I don't find the Umbral thing to be very compelling.
I think it's talking about it and thinking about it. Maybe it sounds more interesting than it is in practice.
I think so.
The medium was kind of like that too, honestly.
Yeah.
Like watching the trailers for it, you're like, wow, that's cool.
That's really cool.
But then you went to play it and you're like, this just drags the experience down.
And there's a lot of technical stuff. Like, it is the Umbral version of the areas are very very, very different.
Yeah,
and the fact that that's
really
all held in memory simultaneously is fantastic.
It really is. Yeah.
Like, it's a technical achievement. I just don't think it's very...
Does it make the game better? That's what matters in the end,
I feel like, weirdly, I would accept this return to the old Dark Souls format easier if it was less... Like, they're expecting you to really get your head around all these different systems pretty fast.
It seems kind of complicated, honestly.
It is rather complicated when you factor in the Umbral thing. And there's times early on where I got stuck, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh, you had to go in the Umbral. And to me, like, going to the Umbral is dying.
Right.
And I don't want to do it, but you got to do it all the time. And it's encouraged.
Yeah.
And you find shortcuts, and you find different ways that way. And it took me a while to kind of get used to the idea that, like, cutting your life in half is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's not that hard to come back to life, but, like, the one thing to note is, like, having a fight with this many enemies, not that uncommon at times.
Which is a big deal for this subgenre.
If you're in the Umbral long enough, because the other thing about the Umbral thing with the eye in the corner, the more vivid that eye gets, the higher the XP multiplier gets. So there's an XP multiplier that starts at 1.1 and can go up to, I think, 4. So if you're being chased by that red Grim Reaper, you're getting 4x XP.
Oh.
Now, obviously, if you get killed, you drop it. Dark Souls style, but you can go back and get it. Mm-hmm. Or you have to. Sometimes it's like it is like Bloodborne in the sense that sometimes I guess it's like they started that into Dark Souls games where like sometimes it just drops on the ground, and sometimes the enemy who killed you has it, and you have to kill that enemy to get it back.
I prefer when it falls on the ground, Matt.
Yeah, well. It's about 50-50 on this one.
Is it really? I will not play this. Like, once I started catching wind that it's like one of the more challenging Souls-likes, I was like, I'm good.
It is definitely challenging.
Yeah.
It is very hard. I think in the end, I probably do like it. If you're going to make me play this or Lies of P, I'm probably going to pick this.
I would guess that would be the case with you.
Just because it's... I think it... I think it does a better Dark Souls impression than Lies of P does a Bloodborne impression, I guess would be the way I'd describe it.
Yeah.
It's clear where the influences are, but I think this one gets closer to what it's trying to do.
Is this game $70?
I can't remember.
It's next gen only. Usually they are.
I think it was 60, and then
really?
there was a deluxe edition for 70.
Okay, for PC you mean?
PC on PC. I don't know about console.
So JM Rain, we know him very well because he's awesome, and he's always giving out subs in our chat. He's also a huge Souls-like player. He's like really pumped up to play this. Should he be?
I mean, I think temper expectations in terms of like this game feels like Dark Souls 4 in a way like is so reminiscent of Dark Souls 3. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you mean.
It feels like in another timeline. This is if they hadn't
if Elden Ring didn't exist.
If they didn't go open world with Elden Ring, like this is probably what Dark Souls 3 would have been, or Dark Souls 4 would have been.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I get it totally.
If they had stuck to the linear dungeon format,
kind of like how we talk about Zelda.
And it does open up a little bit when you get to like the main hub. It's the same format as every one of these. You start out, you have to fight you got to go through the area, you got to fight the first major boss, and you get to the hub, and now you can upgrade your weapons and now when you first get to that hub with the merchants and stuff, one of them sells a key for an obscene amount of money that you can then use to unlock a bunch of doors that you normally wouldn't get to until later, which are high level things which you probably can't handle. But if you're a Dark Souls person, you're probably used to running through stuff and avoiding things and grabbing materials, upgrading, and coming back. So you can kind of, once you get to the main hub, it's not as linear, but it's not like Elden Ring where you can sort of choose a bunch of different places that are of the same sort of difficulty. Yeah. It's like you can either go the golden path, or you can go to these other places you're not supposed to be yet.
Yeah, and it will teach you very quickly that you're not supposed to be there.
But I mean, you can do the Dark Souls thing where you can run through, get some upgrade materials that you shouldn't have yet, and like run back, or just do suicide runs. If you just don't care, you lose your souls. You do that over and over again. Yeah, that's a valid strategy too.
What about the story? Is it cryptic and just fleeting like it is in a lot of From Software's games?
It's the same thing. It's just the same sort of vague dark
no real overt
nonsense.
Cinematics, really.
Oh, no, there's big cinematics. Oh, yeah? Actually, there's cinematic. That's one of my issues with it, actually, now you mentioned that. When you fail at a boss, if there's a cinematic for the boss fight, you have to watch it again. You can skip it, but it still loads the cinematic in, and you have to skip it by holding the button down. And I'm like, just Dark Souls has it right, where it's like you see it once,
you
go back in, he's just fucking sitting there, and it's
he's ready to go. Yeah.
But like, no, there's a bunch of, like early on you run into these guys, there's like another lantern holder guy, and he's like, fuck you, I don't want to deal with that guy. I knew there'd be others, but oh well, like, I'm not helping you. Yeah. And then he does help you in the first boss fight if you summon him. It's just like, okay. But he just complains about it the whole time.
Right.
But yeah, so it's that thing. It's like you talk to like weird, crazy people and sort of piece together what's happening. But there's, cutscenes where at the very beginning you see that one knight guy who's actually the guy who throws the lantern away and it resurrects you. You're basically just a corpse in a coffin that his lantern happened to land on.
Interesting.
When he threw it away because he knew he was about to die.
Lucky you.
But there's like there's a guy, like the main evil guy is like riding that big dragon. You saw in the cutscene. He basically has the mouth of Sauron. He's got like a big drooly mouth that drips like maggots or something. Yeah. And then
it drips like maggots or something.
Yeah. And then like it's things where it's like you saw like that boss where he's fighting like the woman who's like got the giant butterfly wings, angel wings.
Yeah.
Like she's got a cutscene and she's just covered in blood that's dripping off her infinitely for some reason, and she's like, it's like we will be. They're religious zealots of some kind. And it's like oh, the infidels are here, and now I'm gonna like kill you, and it's like okay. So it's like
par for the course.
And it takes place 1,000 years after the first game. And the first game wasn't a very positive place to be anyway, so it's clearly just gotten worse. There are apparently references and like tie-ins to the first game story, but I don't know what they are. I
wonder if anyone will ever make a Souls-like that isn't like dark fantasy. What could you imagine, like a Dayglow, like
yeah.
Do you think? I don't know if it would work. Like it would just seem so out of place.
I think there's something to be said for the idea of like a Happy Tree Friends style thing. Yeah, like where you're just like mercilessly hacking like candy colored bears to death. And
That's next.
There's a Tiny Tina Wonderlands angle to this somewhere in there. Yeah, I don't know if that would really fly with the core fan base.
I think they'd hate it.
But some would like. I mean, I would play that.
Yeah, it would be different. And we're getting to the point now with this subgenre, we kind of need different.
Yeah.
So do you recommend people buy it?
I don't know.
Is it a thumb up from you?
It's another kind of sideways thumb,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, part of it, for me, I'm just really burned out on the old Souls format.
Yeah.
Without a major twist to make it something special.
Yeah.
Like Sekiro was. Not that was after Elden Ring, but
Yeah.
like... And to test it, I went back and I loaded up my PC Elden Ring save, and I played that for like 3 hours and didn't even realize it.
Right into it.
Like, it's not that I'm sick of the genre or the gameplay; it's that this one is just it's
sick
just,
of the old stuff.
Feels old.
Yeah,
feels old to me. Despite how new and shiny and gorgeous it looks, I'm just not super interested in learning another set of like arcane systems to hack my way through. What is definitely harder than the other Dark Souls games so far, with all the different things in play. And like you got this, there's other things where it's like you see an enemy with a blue health bar, and that means that they've got an umbral demon that's empowering them, and you got to pull the lantern up and suck the demon out and kill them while they're trying to hit you with all this shit. I mean, it's just
no thanks. Barry Lomax says we either need different or just a break. Please God, LOL. And I love these kinds of games. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. It
looks like a lot of people in our chat are saying after Elden Ring, I need more time still.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, and Elden Ring is just it changed the game, and
you also have Lies of P that just came out like a few weeks ago, and which sold 1 million copies, by the way.
The thing is like I think this is probably a better game overall in terms of
Lies of P.
Lies of P. But the thing about is Lies of P is really the first Bloodborne clone. There have been tons of Souls clones.
Yeah.
Lies of P is imitating something that has not been imitated much.
People want it.
Lies of P would probably feel fresher in that regard.
Yeah.
I don't like it very much. But if I was going to... I would say if you're a giant Souls veteran and you just want more Souls, Lords of the Fallen. If you're a giant Souls veteran and Elden Ring kind of ruined you and you kind of want something a little different, Lies of P.
Okay.
Or even better, just take a break.
Yeah.
Play a different game.
Yeah. Different genres.
For me, it's just like, I would get into this, but Spider-Man's in like 4 days, and I don't really need to deal with this right now.
I'm pretty excited for that game. So anyway, there you go. That is Lords of the Fallen, only available for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. And Matt gives it a half a thumbs up, very dependent upon kind of where
I'll give
it
like a 7 out of 10.
All right.
Not that I finished it or anything, but like, yeah, it's fine. It's very pretty. If you go through these games largely because you want to see like fantastical and interesting worlds and monsters and things, like this is one of the best.
We could see that in the B-roll for sure. Yep. All right, there you go. That is Lords of the Fallen. Next up, we're going to talk about another game that I played this week, and it is a sports game, and I know you guys, so I'm not going to talk about it very long. But it is something that a lot of us who play sports games have been waiting for, and in this particular case, a subgenre that people who don't typically play sports games might be interested in as well, because we have not received an arcade-style football game in a really, really long time. There was NFL Blitz. That's gone away. There was NFL Street that EA did. That has gone away. It's really crazy to think about it. We haven't had an arcade-style football game for a really, really long time. And now there is one, and it's called Wild Card Football. Now, the thing about this game...
a lot of people thought that this kind of game was pointless if you didn't have the NFL license.
Right. And this game does not have the NFL license. However, it does have, as you see right there, the NFLPA license. And Matt, I have never seen a sports game that only took one of the licenses and not both. But the thing is this is a really smart move. As you can see, there's Patrick Mahomes. It has all the big superstars from the NFL in this game. Now, obviously, as you're seeing in this footage, it's nothing like a real NFL game.
I mean, that happened in the Chargers game this weekend. I don't know if you saw that.
That was just last night, actually. Yeah. And again, we don't really get arcade-style football games anymore. No one's making them. And so I think they made the right decision here. Because I'll say one thing, Matt. I do feel like in the last 4 or 5 years with the NFL, that individual players have become bigger than the shield, as the NFL says. Mm-hmm. Meaning that players like Mahomes are bigger than the NFL. And so if you can get away with doing this, I'm surprised the NFL allowed this, honestly. And that their licensing groups allow this, where you can split them up and not get both licenses. But
from what I understand, they do not have a choice. The Players Association is its own thing.
Really? And I'm sure that's in the CBA that they signed with the NFL. And they were smart because now all these NFL stars are in a game that's completely different. And the most important part of it is you can see them. So in NFL Madden, like 90% of the time, you can't even tell who the players are because they always have their helmets on. In this, like, they have their helmets on, but all the cutscenes have them without their helmets. You really get to see what the players really look like. Now, one thing I will say about it, though, is that because this is an arcade-style football game, you don't really get the signature traits of the players. They all kind of bleed together. Like a scrubby second wide receiver on the Lions really is just as good as like Justin Jefferson on the Vikings, who right now is probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. And so there isn't as much variance with the players, but I feel like the game itself kind of makes up for it. So it is 7-on-7 arcade-style American football for those of our friends in Europe who are watching or listening to this right now. There are just two primary modes. There's Dream Squad, as you're seeing right there, which is basically their take on Ultimate Team mode from Madden. And then there's just a season mode where you just play through a set number of games and try to win the league or whatever. As you can see right here...
Loot boxes.
Yep, the Dream Squad mode has loot boxes. However, there is no way to pay real money for the loot boxes in this game. It is all purely earned or play to earn. So there's nothing that you can pay for in this. It gives you an advantage. You can't pay for better players. And the other thing I would say, too, is that, like, there's no reason to, because, again, they've kind of leveled the playing field with the players. Like, you don't really get the signature abilities of each player when you play this. So as I said, there's the NFLPA license, but no NFL license. So they did create their own like stadiums, their own team logos, their own coaches. However, this game does have Colin Kaepernick in it, which, you know, there's a lot of NFL teams right now that have really crappy quarterbacks, but nobody will give him a chance because he already sued the NFL and they paid him out for it. And the owners are just like, well, screw you. You already got paid. But they did put him in this game. In fact, he is like the cover athlete for this game, which I think it'll appeal to some people and it'll piss off some people.
It'll piss off the right people.
Yeah. Or it'll piss off the wrong people and make the right people happy. Is that the right way to say it?
Maybe.
Anyway, each game is 2-minute quarters.
It's pretty clear that he's not. The reason he's not playing has nothing to do with his ability to play football.
Well, he has been out of the league at this point for like 4 years. I think now at this point he probably is a little too old to play, but that was not the case for the last like 3 years or 4 years or whatever.
I mean, you gotta try everything.
Yeah.
As the Niners have found out.
Yeah, yep. So the game has 2-minute quarters. You can play through a whole game of this in like 10 minutes, which is perfect for an arcade-style game. You do create your own dream team. You choose from hundreds of the genuine pro players. And, of course, they're reimagined with like this weird, like goofy, like cartoon style or whatever. And you do try to create the perfect 7-on-7 team. The twist in this game, though, is that before every play, there's these things called wild cards. And you can turn it off if you want to, but it's the namesake of the game. It's wild card football. And so basically before every play, you select a wild card. And the wild cards are like buffs or debuffs or special abilities. Like you can select one that makes the opponents run slower. You can select one that makes like tar pits appear in the secondary. You can use one that makes a wall appear, or there's just simple ones that make your players run more quickly or be more powerful. But the thing is, the defense is doing the same thing. They're also selecting cards. And sometimes you may select like super speed for your team, and then they select anti-speed, and it like wipes everything out. So there's this weird element of it before every play where you have to do this. I feel like it kind of slows the game down. And honestly, while some of the stuff is kind of cool to see, it didn't feel like it changed the gameplay all that much. I didn't feel like it did anyway. But in the Dream Squad mode, and again, it is the mode that most people should play, you create your own team logo, your own color scheme, you create custom uniforms, and then you open up your packs. And when you first start the game, you have like 10 packs or whatever, you get all your players. And I'll say this too, the interface for it is way better than the interface for Ultimate Team and Madden. Like Ultimate Team's menus and everything are confusing. They found a more elegant way to do it in this, something that EA can definitely learn from, without a doubt. Anyway, you open your packs and you get your players, and you make sure that you have your best starters at every position. You go out and you play. Let's see. You earn your cards. All are earned in-game, as I said. You can't pay for them. And the unlocks seem pretty generous. After almost every game I played, I unlocked at least 2 or 3 players. And then a selection of wild cards. Because there's like 150 different wild cards in this game that you can choose before each play, which is kind of crazy. What else? Oh, when you first start playing in Dream Squad, all the players suck. That's another thing that like takes away all the uniqueness of having the NFLPA license, is that when you start playing in the Dream mode, all the players are rated like 40 out of 100 or whatever. And then as you use them, they level up and they become better. So it is kind of cool in that the more you use a player, the better he gets, but at the same time, it takes away a lot of the personality of actually having the NFL players in the game. The other thing I would say, too, is that leveling up the players takes a really long time. You unlock players quickly, but actually leveling them up takes forever. I don't know that people are going to stick with this game long enough. Like, you can get daily bonuses, too, but, like, who's going to come back to a game like this every day after the first week that they own it? Like, I feel like it brings up a question, Matt. Do you design a game assuming that people are going to play the living crap out of it, or do you design a game being more realistic knowing that they're not going to? How do you manage that situation?
I don't know.
That's a tough one, right? It's like you want to assume your game's going to do well, and if it does, then you need to design the game that way so it keeps doing better. But if you're realistic, this is a little indie football game, it may not do that well, so maybe you should design it for the more moderate-sized audience that you're actually going to have. I don't know.
You're not going to advertise it on NFL games, that's for sure.
Right. It's a tough situation for a developer to be put in.
I mean, I had no idea this game existed.
Yeah.
Until today.
Well, when I saw it, it caught my eye immediately because obviously there hasn't been a real arcade-style, NFL Blitz-style game for a really long time. And I was like, oh, and when I first saw it, I had just finished playing Madden, and I was, if you remember my review of that from here on GameFace, I wasn't all that enthused with Madden this year. So I was kind of like looking for something, and it just like popped up, like the first trailer for it launched like the next day or something like that. So one smart thing that they did do with this, the controls are basically identical to Madden. So turbo, jukes, dives, jumping up to catch the ball, all that stuff is stolen. The control scheme is lifted directly from Madden. That is absolutely the right call. Because if anyone's playing video game football, they're playing Madden. They already have the muscle memory with their hands. Like, for example, when I play Madden, I have muscle memory. Like, I tap circle, which selects the player closest to the ball, and I roll my thumb up to triangle. And the triangle is jump up and make the catch. So when I'm in the secondary and the ball's coming in, I just do that move. I roll my thumb across the circle to the triangle. I will change the guy to the guy closest to the ball, and then he'll jump up and try to catch it. Everything like that from playing Madden is in this game. So you can hit the ground running, really, as soon as you start playing this. Now, another quirk about...
Stillers, I guess.
I named them that, yeah. Another quirk about this is every time you hike the ball, there's a little QuickTime event that takes place. And the QuickTime event, I didn't even notice it the first, 3 games I played. And once I noticed it, I realized, because it's a little bit, people may be looking at this and saying, it looks like Tecmo Bowl, because you only have, 8 offensive plays to choose from, and you only have, 8 defensive plays to choose from. But it's not like Tecmo Bowl in that you're trying to guess the play of the offense, and if that happens, you get the jailbreak blitz that just ends the play. However, if you don't do the QuickTime event quickly at every snap, then there is a jailbreak. And so discovering that, completely changed how I played the game as well. So there's actually a good bit of depth for this game compared to most arcade-style football games. And also the fact that you can play it just like Madden helps people play the game and hit the ground running when they do jump in, which I thought was a really good idea. What else? There's no audibles at the line of scrimmage. That's a huge omission. So if you go up to the line of scrimmage and you can tell that the defense called a run-stopping play and you've called a run, there's nothing you can do. So in that way, it is a little bit like Tecmo Bowl. In that case, they will storm in and they will sack you, and there's really nothing that you can do about it. So there are some analogs to classic Tecmo Bowl, but not as much as you might think by watching this. It really is more like NFL Blitz than like a Tecmo Bowl. And that's pretty much it. It's like a $30 game, so it's pretty cheap. A lot of it will depend on if you get hooked on it. There's online play. Like I said, it has its equivalent of Ultimate Team Mode, which is what most people play in Madden, and it's handled very well, and I actually think the menus are done better in this than they're done in the Madden games. It plays just like Madden, so you can jump in and start playing pretty well right away once you uncover its quirks. And if you don't like some of this stuff, it does allow you to turn a lot of it off, like the wildcard stuff that you're seeing right there. If you don't like it, turn it off. But again, it's what the game is named after, so you might want to at least give it a try. And there are some cool things that happen when you use those, like having the La Brea tar pits out in the secondary, and if you can force people into them and they run in mud. And if you're strategic with your cards, and every card, so see the green dots below, like up on the top there, that tells you like how many card points you have. And the better cards cost you more card points. When you get down to where you don't have any blue dots left, you can't use any cards anymore. So it's like this yin and yang of like knowing when to use them, because you don't know when the opponent's going to use them or not either. And so it does add like an element to the game that's different from other sports games. I think your mileage will vary depending on how, or as far as how much you're going to enjoy them. So it's hard for me to say whether they're awesome or they suck. I kept with them. I kept using them. I don't know if other people will or not, but if they don't want to, they can just turn them off. So I actually had a good time with this. It's the first entry in the franchise. It plays well. It looks okay. A lot of the crazy over-the-top, or you see one right there, the over-the-top tackling animations look pretty cool. There's some pretty crazy ones that will make you cringe. They look so painful. So look, if we're not going to get an NFL Blitz from Midway, we're not going to get an NFL Street from EA, I think this is a pretty good facsimile. It's kind of a blend between the two of them. And again, I think they were smart by going for the NFL PA license without having to chuck out the extra cash for the NFL license. I think overall there's a lot of smart decisions made with this game, and I think the second entry will probably nail a lot of the stuff down. It's a little loosey-goosey in the first outing, but I think it's really an auspicious debut for this franchise. It really would be nice if this ended up on Game Pass. Because I feel like this is the type of game that could really receive a huge boon if people actually just gave it a chance and started playing it. But on the flip side of it, there's no microtransactions. So if you put it on Game Pass, you're just hoping that it convinces people to buy it or just play it instead of generating a ton of revenue off of it, other than the money that Microsoft's going to give you for having it on its service. But anyway, the game is Wild Card Football. It's available for pretty much everything, actually. I think it is available for everything but mobile. So if you're into it and you miss arcade football like I did, it is more than functional, more than fun. I had a really good time playing it, and you can buy it for anything, and it is completely different. Again, I think this appeals to people who don't like real NFL football but still enjoy playing sports games in the competitive angle of playing sports games. So I had a lot of fun with it. Don't want to spend a ton of time on it because I understand that a lot of you guys aren't big sports fans, but I had fun with it. It wouldn't be a bad idea for this developer. I think it's Saber Interactive. To start looking at other sports and giving it this kind of treatment, although I think it did do maybe a soccer game not that long ago that wasn't as good, so maybe that's a fool's errand. But I had a lot of fun with it. It's called Wild Card Football, and it's available for everything right now. Any questions, Matt?
Nope.
I'm going to look at chat, but I'm guessing nobody has any questions. I think people are talking about the license or whatever. Yes, not the NFL, though. I was answering to Shane's comment about the NFL allowing them to do this. No, I don't think it allows it. I mean, it's in their contract. So there's the NFL Players Association signs a contract with the NFL called the Collective Bargaining Agreement. And that's where everything is laid out. And, like, once the players agree to that stuff, there's no whining. Like, when I see players complain about, like, well, that's not fair. It's like, you signed the CBA. Don't sign the CBA if you don't like it. So this was a part of the CBA, obviously, that they could create games just based on the NFLPA license, and they don't need to tag on with the NFL license and pay the extra cash. So,
I mean, the Players Association is basically their union. Like they are adversarial to the NFL when necessary.
Oh yeah. When they go to sign a new CBA, like they may go on strike if they can't come to an agreement with the NFL. So they're not buddies. Jerry Vic 7 says, Shane, it's All Pro Football 2K8 with the Legends players, but not the NFL license. That was the other example. Also, newest Super Mega Baseball has many Legends from MLB without MLB license. Okay, cool. I don't think you guys have any questions. Mellow Pintor says Kaepernick makes a comeback. That's wild. I mean, this is the only way it's really going to happen, honestly, is for something like this. So... Scorpius Finest, so it's got real NFL players? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's got, I don't think it has all of them, but I was shocked at how many it had. Like, even some of the 2-bit players, like the second tight end on the Houston Texans was in there. So they've gone pretty deep with the players. I think they have the license for all of them, and maybe DLC, they roll out more player packs or whatever.
They should do some, like, all-timer classic teams.
Yeah. Like, get the 70s Steelers, the 80s Niners, like, all that stuff in there. Like, I don't know if that license is for all, like, legacy players, though. I don't know how that works.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But if I were them, I'd try to figure it out.
Sure, yeah, because you're not selling stuff. So if you want to sell DLC player packs, that you might be able to sell that. So
you could sell the Bears.
The Bears. You're the 85 Bears. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, there you go.
Good tribute to Dick Butkus.
Yeah, that's Wildcard Football, and is available for every platform.
Kind of amazed that guy lived as long as he did, considering the era of football he played in.
Who?
Dick Butkus.
Yeah, he made it to 80, which gives me hope.
And that dude was not taking it easy
No,
on the
he
field.
wasn't at all. That's for sure.
Tough man.
Absolutely. So anyway, let me look at the time here. It looks like we're going to have time for Name That Game this week. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, SoundWizardry.com.
Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel.
Once again, a huge thank you to SoundWizardry.com for sponsoring GameFace. If you have any sound needs, requirements, whatever, they do consulting, they do hands-on stuff, and obviously their resume is amazing. And in fact, the owner of SoundWizardry.com let me know that you guys should maybe be a little more excited for Alan Wake 2 than you currently are. And that's all I'm going to say. He worked on the game. I trust him. And so he's also worked on Baldur's Gate 3. What an amazing resume that they have there. Again, if you have any sound needs, if you're working on your own podcast and the audio sounds like crap, like I've had to reach out to them for, anything like that, they're a great resource. And again, even just consulting, if you have a project, you have audio coming up on, you can work with them to make sure that you get it all locked down. So thanks again to soundwizardry.com. And with that, it's now time for... That's right, it's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before Matt Keil. There's a couple rules that we follow before we get going. The first is, if you've won this year, do not play. You can only win once every calendar year. Number 2 is that the chat goes into slow mode, so don't just spam the chat with game titles. You can only send one message every 60 seconds. And then the third thing is, if you don't play PC games or you don't know someone who plays PC games, please do not play, because if you win a free PC game. We give you a code for a free PC game, and we want to give the codes out to people who are actually going to play it. So if you don't have a PC, you're not into PC gaming, or you don't know someone who is, you can give the code to, and we're totally cool with that. If you don't want the code, you want to give it to someone, it's yours to do whatever you want with. But if the code is just going to go to waste, then please just don't play, because there are people who are very, very excited, let me tell you, when they win and they get the free code. So let's not take that away from them. Actually, Name That Game I had for last week's show, but we ran out of time, and so it actually saved me pre-production on this week's show to have this one done already. And I'm not going to give any hints on this one, and I'll be honest with you, I have no idea how many screenshots this one's going to take. Usually I think I have a rough idea, and I'm usually wrong, but usually I have a rough idea. This one I really don't know, so we'll see. Are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
Are you guys ready for Name That Game? Here we go with the first screenshot. NFL Blitz 2000. No.
That'll be a rough field for that.
Either you know that texture or you don't. That's what this one will come down to. Gears 2. No. I've noticed in the last few weeks that we've played this. Oh my gosh, somebody got it already. We have a winner already. Climax 83. We have a winner. That is Bloodborne. Believe it or not, that is Bloodborne. Great job, man. Holy crap. That's impressive. Like I said, I had no idea. I knew that like Bloodborne fans are like huge. You know, they really know the game really well inside and out. And you do kind of traverse, go back and come back to areas so they may be familiar with textures, but wow, all it took was the bricks and you knew exactly what it was. Awesome job, man. Really, really good job. So again...
Second guess.
Yeah, the second guess. I'm surprised more people didn't guess it because, you know, there's a delay But look, he was the only one that really got it. Oh, their Mellow Pintor way later, said Bloodborne. But Climax 83, good job, man. I'll show you.
Suspiciously later.
Yeah, exactly. I'll show you the rest of them. Here's the second one.
Yeah, the Hunter's Dream.
Would that have given it away for you?
Known that one.
Yeah. Here's the third one. Just some crazy plants that is in one section of the game pretty predominantly. Here's the fourth one. You can see the little piece of the red moon there in the top left. I just left a little bit of it in there to help you guys out. And then here's the last one. By then, the totality of all the images, I think everybody would have got it at that point. But anyway, there you go. Congratulations. That's Bloodborne is the winner. Another round of applause for you. It's been a while since we've had one on the first one, I think. Toon Medic guessed it way later. Mellow Pintor gifted a tier 1 sub to Zet Saber. Awesome, man. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We have about 8 minutes for Q&A. Go at Sifted Games in chat. It makes it easier for us to pluck them out of all the madness in our chat. And we'll answer a couple questions here before we go. Let's see what we got. Oh, we got a first-time chat ever, and we're definitely going to answer the question. Look, any of you guys who watch the show and just sit there quietly and just enjoy the show, if you ever ask a question at Q&A as your first-time chat, we promise that we will answer your question every single time. And here's one from Quickster. Welcome to GameFace on Twitch. Thank you very much for supporting us. 3 years in, and Forza is the first Microsoft first-party game to include ray tracing. Why do you think Microsoft has so many issues developing for its own hardware? It seems like Xbox is the only console where the best-looking games are third-party. I don't know that I can say any of that's wrong.
No, I mean, they haven't really put a lot out.
Look at Halo Infinite. Definitely not one of the better-looking games on Xbox Series X. Like, Forza isn't. Like, Redfall isn't.
Definitely not.
Starfield isn't. Although it's up there. But
in places, but
still not. That's a good question.
We'll see about Hellblade.
Yeah, Hellblade so far looks like it might be on that top shelf.
I mean, we
haven't seen much of it.
The first one was if you run it with everything on a PC. They got it. They got the spirit. We'll see.
Do you think maybe the problem is that they're making these games for PC?
No, I think
they just can't scale it enough on Series X.
I think the problem is they've all been somewhat troubled productions, except Starfield, which is just, Starfield is Starfield.
Do you think they're writing to the metal on Series X?
I think they're getting them done.
Yeah.
I don't even know what writing to the metal means anymore.
It means like just developing for that very specific piece of hardware.
That would be stupid though, because you can't write to the metal because you have.
Well, it depends. If you're Quickster and you're like all your first party games look like crap,
sure,
is it stupid?
It is stupid because it has to work on the Series S, which is apparently the most important thing ever in the history of the world. So,
but I think it would be smarter at least to prioritize Series X over PC because you're going to sell and attract way more people on console than you are on PC.
Well, but what are they doing that prioritizes PC?
Well, the games often look way better on PC than they do on Series X.
They're always going to look better on PC.
Yeah, at least a little bit. But to me, it seems pretty drastic, honestly.
It's largely because of the resolution they can do.
Yeah.
It's a hardware limitation. It's a setting. It's a setting bump. It's a slider. It has nothing to do with what they're doing with the design.
Certain developers are better at getting performance out of hardware. Look at Naughty Dog on any PlayStation console. There are certain developers that are just better.
Sure, but that's just not what anybody's doing. Because the Sony people don't have to get it to run on the PS4 still. Mm-hmm. That helps. And on top of that, Starfield was never going to look like Last of Us 2 remastered.
Because it took too long to make, mostly.
No, because they're using the same engine they've been using for 15 years.
30 years old.
There's animations in that game that are clearly from Oblivion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's just... I get it. It's a big thing to make, and there's a lot of new stuff in there that obviously has no precedent in their other games. But there's a reason people say it's Fallout in space.
Yeah, because it is Fallout.
It's a refinement of Fallout 4.
Yeah. Let's see. We got time for maybe one more, or maybe two more.
Forza, I don't know. Maybe they traded ray tracing for the rest of the game's personality. I don't know.
Any thoughts on what may have precipitated Pete Hines' exit from Bethesda? We can all speculate on a lot of things, but he's a huge loss for Microsoft.
Been there for almost
24 years.
quarter of a century, and he's old enough and has enough money to retire and enjoy his life.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly what he said in the message.
Yeah, I don't think he's a straight shooter. So what he wrote, even in the thing he put on Twitter versus the thing he put on Facebook, which is a little more elaborate on Facebook, he's telling the truth. Like, he's been doing this for 24 years. I mean, so have we, but we're not retiring. But he has a lot more money than us. And I think to Matt's point earlier, it's like, if you work at Bethesda, you go in like a 5 or 6 year cycle.
Yeah.
And they just launched Starfield, and he had mentioned it in his message. Like, we just launched Starfield. I felt like this was a good place to exit. And so he's looking at it. He's like, okay, next Elder Scrolls game, that's probably not here for another 4 or 5 years. Do I want to go through 4 or 5 years of promoting the next Elder Scrolls game like I just did for Starfield? He just said no. And the other thing, too, we talked about earlier is, like, when a company is bought and merged, a lot of times there's redundancies, and, like, while he wasn't redundant, they kept him on. Like, there could be other people in the organization that he's butting heads with or he's competing with, and maybe he wanted, like, a pathway to move up inside of Microsoft and get out of Bethesda, and that didn't present itself. There's a million things that could have caused him to want to retire.
But most likely,
he's set financially.
He's just time to retire.
He's had an amazing career, and he's a good dude, and he has hobbies like that he enjoys. Like, he travels a lot anyway.
Also, you're about to walk into the fire of an Elder Scrolls game.
Yeah.
I'd probably retire too.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do I want to do this, or do I want to wait around for 5 years and then have to
dealt with all the Starfield crazies and all the fanboy crap over that. Like, you just get to a certain point, and you're just like, you know what? Like, I'm done.
And he's what? He's like, he's older than us. He's coming up on mid-50s at least.
Yeah, mid-late 50s. Yeah, it's time.
It's time.
He's crazy wealthy.
You're talking about either retiring in your mid-50s where your guy can go do some stuff and have some fun, or like retiring in your 60s where who knows what's going on. Yeah. So I think he's making the right choice.
I agree. Yeah, he should. If I could do it, I would do it too at his age. I'm not ready to retire yet. I still actually enjoy working, believe it or not. Gohan Rage, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. That's awesome. I hope you're doing good. JMRain99, thank you for gifting tier 1 subs to the crew in chat. You're awesome as usual. Here's a good one from Congrim, although maybe a little bit earlier, but I think it's a good fun question to end the show on. Congrim 1, in the spirit of Halloween, what is the most paranormal, unexplained event you've ever experienced?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing is paranormal and nothing is unexplainable. We just don't have the explanation yet.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't believe
I have never had anything happen to me that was any kind of paranormal, supernatural, anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't believe in the paranormal at all. However, when I was really young, we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and there was this writer or poet. I can't remember what it was, whether she was a novelist or a poet. Her name was Ida L. Reed. And her old house was like a state landmark or whatever, and it was like a mile away from us, and it was like in between my friend's house and my house. And so I'd ride past it on my bike all the time. As we got older, my sister and I, we would go there at nighttime to try to scare ourselves. And so we would go into this old house, and it's got a bunch of old furniture, and it's all dusty and spider webs and stuff everywhere. And all it would take is just a rat or something to just move a little bit, and we would go pew, and we'd run out of that house. So while I don't think there was actually paranormal stuff in there, when we were young, we were gullible enough to believe that it might be possible. So we go into this house, we thought it was a haunted house, and if anything in there would move, we would lose our minds and run out of there screaming. So that's probably the closest I ever came to a paranormal experience, although I'm with Matt. I don't believe in the paranormal at all. I don't believe in the supernatural. I don't believe in the paranormal. I believe in reality. And that's pretty boring, but that's just how I feel.
I mean, it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But, like, nope.
Yeah.
Everything that's been even slightly weird has turned out to be a branch against a window, or
you always find out what it is.
Cloth hanging on a tree, or is it?
Yep. Well, that's going to do it for GameFace episode 362. Thanks to everybody who supports us, all our patrons, the people who are doing Twitch Prime. You guys are awesome. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who shows up live in chat, fact checks our show live so we don't have to do a goofy segment every episode where we go over the stuff we got wrong the last time. We really appreciate all of you. You guys are awesome. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services, or if you're watching it on YouTube, first of all, please go help us out with Twitch Prime. It is free. It costs you nothing. We'd really, really appreciate it. If you want to support us on a more permanent basis, please head to patreon.com/SIFTD. That's SIFTD. You can pledge whatever you want per month, and you get something no matter which tier you pledge at. and we'd really appreciate it. That's the best stuff that can happen for us because it lets us plan at least a little bit more long term, assuming that you're in it for the long haul. So we have an awesome episode coming up next week. We're going to have Spider-Man. We're going to have the new Sonic. We're going to have Super Mario Brothers Wonder all in one episode. I saw Vincent mention in chat, he's like, well, there's probably not going to be a Name That Game next week, and he's probably right. We're going to have a lot of important stuff to get to in next week's episode. But anyway, thanks again for watching. We appreciate all you guys. Have a great week. GameFace is up and out.